Good evening, everyone. Call to order the Appropriations Committee meeting of March 21st, 2024. We have one member absent, Bob D'Amico. I hope he's not still sick, and my apologies as my throat's a little sore, so thanks, Tim, for the candy. We're going to revise the agenda just a little bit, take things out of order. If it's okay with the committee, we're going to bring Recreation Department budget presentation first with Ally Lane.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is very exciting. I haven't been here in over 12 years. No, I appreciate you having me. I know I was invited this year because things are a little different. Pre-COVID, we were a self-sufficient department. We have a revolving account where the money that we brought in through programming paid for all of the programming on top of my salary and my assistant salary. Unfortunately, in March of 2020, my department was actually closed down. The schools were closed. We weren't running any programs. About 8 months later, we opened back up and we were able to start running summer programs of 2021, I think, yeah, 22, I can't remember. A year later, we started the summer programs and the numbers were okay. We were able to get people back. The kids that were bringing, the first summer back, we were wearing masks, staff, kids, everything was outside. We had lots of tents and it was great. The people needed it. Our department pretty much in the summer is for working parents. We're an affordable, safe, fun, alternative for the kids to spend their summer. So when we opened back up, people were really excited. Our numbers were very low because we could only do half the amount and we had to order double the equipment because kids weren't allowed to share equipment that summer. So it was a very interesting time, but we made it through and our numbers have been going up ever since as far as the people signing up for programming. We actually accomplished a lot since COVID. You're all residents, so you know that we rebuilt Assabet Playground, a new ADA playground, which is amazing. It was one of my biggest achievements in my 22 years here. We built 6 new pickleball courts at Ellsworth McAfee, which was pretty awesome. I don't know if you drive by, they're being used at all times, morning, noon, and night. We started off after COVID through the Be Well program. We do our last day activity event that we do. We get between 800 and 1,000 people that come to that last day of school event. So on the last day, they get out in a half day. We run a program starting at 1 at Ellsworth McAfee for the kids. Everything is free. All the town departments set up booths and we are just there to answer questions, talk to people about what we do, get kids outside, families. It was a huge success. We will be doing it again this year. The last day of school is June 13th. We've had 1 snow day so far. So hopefully everyone will come to that as well. It just seems to get bigger every year. We took over the turkey trot since COVID, which is really fun. We use the money raised for the turkey trot towards families that need help paying for programming throughout the year. So it's been very successful. The first year we profited about $11,000, and the second year we profited about $14,000. So we had over 800 runners. It was pretty awesome. I've done a lot of road races in my time here, and that is the most successful, most fun. I mean, everybody dresses up. It's a really fun event, so that is really wonderful. One of the things that was our main goal after COVID was to create more adaptive programming for kids with disabilities, adults with disabilities. We have quadrupled our number of programming, and we've actually combined with Shrewsbury and Southborough to create a program called Rec Connect, where we do all sorts of programming together for children and adults that have adaptive needs. So we've succeeded by far what we were trying to do for that program. So we're really, really happy with that. We've also been collaborating with other rec departments for other programs as well, field trips, all sorts of stuff that we might not be able to fill. And the more the more we bring in together, the more opportunities that people have for the programs to run. So we're still playing catch up from COVID. We're doing our best. We have, I I would like everyone to take a look at our website and then take a look at the surrounding town website, and you will see a huge difference. We offer more than double most of the other towns around us. There's only 2 of us full-time in the office, and we put in a lot of work to create programming for everybody, not just kids. I know a lot of adults don't realize that we do things for adults, but that's why we send home the brochures in hopes that we can get, our information out to everybody. But we're always adding on to the brochure. So I ask everybody to just take a look at our website, and you can see all the stuff that we offer. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Excellent. Then, Jason, from a budget perspective, does the rec department, like on the summary you just gave us, is there a line there we can look at in terms of?
Yeah, absolutely. So the handout that I provided was the balanced budget summary that we typically have in our town meeting book and goes to various places in our,
Okay.
so,
I don't think I have this.
oh, it should, here, I got extra copies too.
I go right from fire to, oh, thank you. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and Angie might have put it in the folder way to the back, too.
yeah, so this is one of the last things that got produced this week, so
Okay.
that would make sense that it's on the bottom. But, okay, so balanced budget summary. Ally's money gets transferred in, an amount gets transferred in under Article 4, which are a typical article appropriating money for the town's operating budget. If you look on the first page, you see a line that says other funds near the total general fund revenues. It's about halfway down the page. But if you see total revenues, includes the enterprise funds. Skip 4 ahead of it, there's 937, 643. See that number there?
Yep.
So that number includes the recreation amount. And that, the amount included there is $100,000 of the 937.
And you said that was 100,000, Jason?
$100,000, yeah.
And the mechanics of that then is you've programmed into the operational budget
Correct, so
these other funds.
if you skip ahead to the next page,
Second page. Yep.
if you look toward the bottom, there's a
there it
line,
is.
a heading that says community services.
Yes.
And then 2 lines down below that, there's one for recreation. And that's the budget for the salaries for Ally and the assistant director.
And that typically comes back to the general fund from the revolving fund
So
throughout
this-
the year as fees come in. Is that typically how that works?
Well, we'd make the transfer once, and then the revolving fund collects money over the course of the year while it's paying expenses at the same time. So then it should build up a balance so that we can appropriate an amount out of it next year for FY '26's salaries.
Okay.
One of the things that, when we closed down for COVID, we ended up at $0, so we had to start all over again. It
Right.
took us 4 to 5 years to be able to become self-sufficient.
Because you
in
have
the
to be a
beginning.
year ahead.
Correct. So the first year we were back, we were fully funded through the general fund. The second year, we were able to pay a portion. Again, we're paying a portion. We had tried to be self-sufficient the last fiscal year. We didn't make enough money to do that. So this year, I went and asked if we could, again, take some money from the general fund so that we're not behind again. We're trying to build up that fund like we had in the beginning. One of the things we did this year is we actually raised the price of camp by $75 a week per student. We raised the prices of our other programming. A lot of you know me, and I've been here for a while, and I'm very resistant to raise prices because we are a recreation program. One of the things I have an issue with is I don't feel as though we can be the same price as the Y or Teamworks because we don't have the same offerings that they have. So I've always been very resistant. Our camp is fantastic because of the staff. We're in a non-air conditioned school for the entire day. So we have to get very creative in what we do, and kids come back every single year. So we're doing something right. My staff is phenomenal. And we come up with some really fun activities for those kids to want to come back we have kids that come all summer. and they still want to come back the next year. So I'm really proud of that. I've tried very hard to keep the prices low, but last year when we weren't able to be self-sufficient, I knew that I had to change my thought process and raise the prices. I'll be honest, I was very nervous when we had camp signups this year because I didn't know how that was going to affect the public, but we were still able to fill the program very quickly. So I was really happy.
In about 10 minutes.
It was, yeah, less than that.
So I guess my question then is because this is the year when we're more than likely going to be asking the town to pay more in taxes.
Right.
So what can the department do to ensure that town residents have priority
Right.
in registration over neighboring town residents so that they're not waitlisted even though they logged in right exactly at 9 o'clock? So what can be put in place to ensure that town residents have a true priority
Right.
period of registration?
It hasn't been that way in the past because we were self-sufficient and before we weren't able to fill the camp. So that's why we opened it up to everyone. What we plan to do next year, if we are funded through the budget, is to allow Northborough residents to register first. So they would have priority. They would be able to register before everybody else, and then it would open up to the public after that.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm curious to see if it will fill with just Northborough residents as well.
I think it
So,
will. I think it will.
yeah, the reason we were resistant to do that, to be honest, is because of the way our camp is set up. Again, we don't have pools, we don't have, archery or a lake or anything like that. So the people that come to our camp aren't driving from other towns just to come to our camp. They're coming because they work right here. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like we're attracting people from all over the place because it's the greatest place on earth. It's because I'll be honest, I love it. I think our camp is fantastic, but we're getting people that need to go to this specific place. So that's why I was resistant to do it, because the people that are using it from out of town are usually teachers over at Algonquin that are working over the summer and they need help. And it's just a lot easier to bring them to our location. We have, someone who works at a dentist office right down the street. So that's pretty much who the out-of-towners are. We take 120 kids and we have 18 of them that are from out of town. And, 2 of them where grandparents live in town and the kids stay with them in the summer. So there are extenuating circumstances that I would hate to turn them away, but I do understand the need of, the residents feeling as though they have first priority.
How large is the wait list?
We have about 30 kids on the wait list. Yeah, that's pretty normal. We actually added 20 more spots this year as well, so it just seems to be getting bigger and bigger, but the school doesn't allow us to, take more space than we already have, so we have to kind of stay within the confines of what's available to us.
And how, you may not know this off the top of your head, but how frequent do you get where families will register for maybe every week, but then a month and a half later,
Oh, yeah.
they want a refund, they cancel this week and that week and that week and that week?
Oh, yeah, we just took, 15 people off the wait list the last 2 weeks because that's happening right now. So people have this fear that they have to sign up for everything immediately. So they do. And then, I just got into gymnastics camp. I just got into here. We're going to go on vacation. So then all the cancellations start coming in. And that's another thing that we did for the first time this year is we have a $10 fee if you cancel because of the credit card fees that we incorporate, which I haven't done in the past. So we're doing that again this year. But yes, we do get a lot. We've taken off multiple kids and families off the wait list.
And I think what happened was that with that though is you get people that register and sign up and they block the entire summer with no intent to actually use it every week of the summer. They choose their vacations because I think that our refund policy, I'm a resident, I'm a parent, we use the programs too. It's, I think, overly generous to where you can decide, because it encourages,
Right.
$10 is, let's face it,
know.
given the cost of camps and childcare and a nanny and all these different options that parents have, the $10 fee is not a deterrent. And so the fact that they can register that day and have no consequence to canceling even months later, is concerning and maybe something that's worth looking at.
Right. And I agree with you, Jeff, it is. And like I said before, I struggle to keep adding on more fees, but I do agree with you. We did notice that especially since COVID. It wasn't really like that before COVID. People were just so frantic to get their children into the program because there were limited numbers the first year we came back. That's what started this whole creation of everybody, filling up in 5 minutes.
Sure.
It was all post-COVID.
Do your systems make it feasible to say that if you register, then if you don't cancel in 24 hours, then you could just get credit to use for town rec programs
Oh, yeah.
in the future?
But you're talking $3,000 people pay for a summer of camp.
Yeah.
That just pains me to think that someone wouldn't get that back.
That's on them. That's on them. I mean, the thing is that, because they truly do, they fill up like this, and every mom in the circle, like a Northborough Moms page on Facebook for Northborough, if you were to take a look at that, when it's registration day, because everyone's sitting there at the whole town, they're all sitting there at the computers waiting for 9 a.m. or whatever time it is, and they're hitting refresh about 5 minutes early, and they're all sitting there, and then they're typing furiously, and then they're like, I got waitlisted one of the weeks, and it's like, and it's because of so many families that just take them with no intention of using them, and I think a more effective deterrence needed, because it really is it's very frustrating, because the programs are wildly popular. People love them because they're great, and
Thank you.
and the kids you have that are the counselors are great.
They are.
And it's a very reasonable, even with the $75 increase, I think compared to other programs, it's still very reasonable. I think it'll continue to be wildly popular. So I think it's just, if we could find ways to help stop the abusive
Right.
registration practices, because they're out there, it's intentional.
Right. No, I absolutely agree with everything that you're saying. Again, it's definitely something to think about, and funny enough, we just had a conference this week for all Massachusetts recreation directors, and one of the things that came up was that it's a trend. What's happening here is happening in all towns. It's just the massive signups, and we were all talking about how do we handle that? And I was asking them, how many of you are just your town only? You know what I mean? And very few were. Most of them opened them up, which was surprising to me. But it was just interesting because they don't have the same policy that I have as far as the refund. I am very generous. So that is something that my assistant and I were going to look into, absolutely. So I hear what you're saying, and I do agree with what you're saying as well.
Yeah, it could be kind of a timing thing, that if you cancel this far ahead of the date, but
So much
if you
percent.
cancel 24 hours before, you get nothing back. But if you cancel,
Right.
month and a half or 2 months before, you can get, so you can have a sliding scale that
Right.
just
Sure. Yeah.
doesn't allow you to kind of play the game you're.
Right, because if you get waitlisted, now you have to think about, what will I do this summer? And you're gonna make another plan.
Right.
Now you commit to another plan that might not let you out.
Right.
So even on your wait list, you might be no good to you, because
Right.
by the time the call comes in, well, you've already committed to something else, because parents can't go into like June
Yeah.
without a plan.
Right.
So yeah, it's very tough, and I'm not suggesting that this is like a really easy solution, but I just think that especially if we're gonna be including it in the general fund, and we're gonna be going, looking to town meeting, and it's, there's
Right.
just to assure people that we have their best interests in mind.
We do have every plan for next summer. It will be Northborough residents first.
Yeah.
Yep. Because we do appreciate your support with our department. Absolutely, obviously, I'm here for Northborough. I love doing things for everybody, but I'm first here for Northborough, and I do recognize that.
So in terms of budget numbers, then on the order of 160,000 in the operational budget, with the intent that 100,000 will transfer in from the revolving fund to offset that. Is how the numbers.
So it's about a 60,000 shortfall due to the catch-up we're
And
planning.
the plan is that as we go into the future, that's going to
Continue to reduce.
Get lower, hopefully.
get to the point, the goal is to be self-sufficient
Correct.
again. Okay.
That is the goal.
Excellent.
and that's the pardon me, that's the mechanics of how it's worked in the past as well. In '23, when it was brought back at $75,000, that's how the difference was funded. And I'm not sure it was called out to the level of attention that we're paying to it right now. But those are the mechanics of how it works. The other funds get transferred in under the article, then the full amount is appropriated in the budget. So the funding gap is the difference. This is the difference between this number on page 2, which is $166,640, and the $100,000, so it's $66,640.
That's it. Any other questions for Al? Yeah, Tim?
Is there a way to donate to help families that can't afford?
Absolutely, yes. We actually, if you go onto our website, we have a scholarship. It's almost like signing up for a program. It's a scholarship button that you can press, and you can donate any amount of money, and that goes 100% to families that need help paying for programming.
How many families, how many kids in general do you think you have?
The highest this year that we've ever had. So we've already used all of the turkey trot money, which has never happened. We have a very high need this year, but we also have help. The Women's Club likes to, helps out with a week worth of camp for somebody. We also have the Masonic Angels are always helpful. So we do have a good outside source, but I was I don't want to say surprised, but it was definitely, we've had more need this year than any other year I've been here.
Okay, much like my kids go, and
Absolutely.
it's such a wonderful experience for the kids. I would hate for anybody
I know,
to miss out on it just because of money.
right.
It's sad. And I'm glad, I will certainly, now that I know that, make an effort to help in any way that I can. I hope other people in the community will
I appreciate that.
also go on and,
And just so that you know, the funds only go to Northborough residents for scholarships.
yeah. They could go to kids anywhere. Kids are
Yeah,
kids.
kids are kids.
I agree, but the money is real. You know what I mean? We've
I
always
know.
used, and we've been able to use it all just for Northborough residents. And so I've always done that with the scholarship money.
Yeah. Okay.
To Tim's point, I also did not know that you could just donate to that fund. And so, and because I'm on all the time looking at, so
Yeah.
I guess, so when you have big events like last day, is there a way you could just kind of have some like QR codes around, say, hey, if you want to help?
Absolutely.
Because I think it's because I think a lot of families, if they knew, would be more than happy, because, like I said, the programs in this town are very popular. And like Tim said, all the kids deserve that opportunity, so.
No, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your support with that. Thank you.
Great question.
You do a great job.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Tim. I appreciate
truly.
it, guys.
You do.
22 years, I still love coming to work every day. So I always say I have the fun department in this town. Nobody comes in here to yell at me, so I like it.
That's great. All right. Any other questions? Not seeing none. Ally, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really
Ally,
appreciate it.
see
It was
you.
nice to see everybody.
Thank you for everything you do. And then next up, we'll bring Chief Parenti for the fire budget presentation, and we continue to defer those minutes.
That's all right.
Sure.
Extend him some courtesy.
And then, Bob, welcome. Sorry, Mike. No worries there. We knew, good, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm still, extension cord's still plugged in over here, but.
You're gonna sit nice and close, Deb, so I can screen at you.
And then, Jason, in support of the fire department budget, any supplemental stuff, or just go from this summary as well?
The summary is all that's prepared. Should match what's in the budget.
Cool.
Better match what I have up here, or else I'll be really mad.
Is this packet what we're going to be seeing on the screen?
Not that one. You will eventually, yes.
Okay.
What you're gonna be seeing on the screen is actually just 3 simple slides for the budget.
Okay. And thank you, Chief, for your willingness to talk on a couple additional issues too, besides
So
the topics.
as Owen's firing this up here, I'm going to apologize ahead of time because you're going to hear a lot from me. The chair asked me to present on not only our budget, but to touch just a little bit on the CIP, and that'll be like a 2-minute discussion. And then to talk about the SAFER grant and what's going on with that, and then to speak to the fire station. So that's a lot of big stuff to talk about. So I will do the best I can. I'm going to skip through some slides, but we'll see how it goes. So I put here, you get the fire department 4-in-1 presentation. So I also have Deputy Espezi. He's behind me. Neil's been with us for 7 months now.
Yeah, maybe 7 months.
Okay. And I asked him, I said, I'll be talking a lot, so if I start to get, then you have to jump up in and take over for me, so. The first slide is, you should have a copy of this. This is our CIP. In years past, the town administrator always wanted a 6-year CIP. I've always done a 10-year CIP because I always want to know what the heck's going on further out. So this is an example of our CIP. We have one item coming up this year, which is our rescue truck. I presented on Tuesday night to financial planning. It's $1.25 million for a rescue pumper, a rescue truck with a, and it's shocking to me. I've been in the fire service since 1978, and I've been a career firefighter since 1986. And when I first was a chief, I was buying engines for $300,000 and $400,000. And now I'm buying ambulances for $550,000 and engines for $1 million, and it just blows my mind. And every time we go to talk to our vendors, they go, well, if you don't lock it in now, new motors coming out, because DEP, our friends at DEP always want to change the emissions. And when they change the emissions, the motor changes. And when the motor changes, then they have to redesign the fire truck. And when they redesign the fire truck, the price goes up by about $100,000. So it is crazy. And when I got this price for the rescue, I was just shocked. And then I don't want to talk about the tower, but because I won't be here by that time. And the deputy will be here. The tower is going to be probably close to $3 million when you go to replace it. That'll be in '29. And so what we do is the engines, rescues are replaced every 20 years. Ambulances are replaced every 10 years. Vehicles, when I say replaced, the front piece is replaced and then they rotate back through. And then vehicles like mine and the deputies and the pickup, they're about 8 years, depending on how much abuse they get. We can't just go by mileage because people say, well, the mileage is really low. Well, yes, it may take me 3 miles to get to a fire and then it pumps for 10 hours. So what we do is we have a formula we use that allows us to say, okay, if this is the number of hours we have, what's the mileage? So people who can get kind of a grasp. And we use 40 miles an hour because that's a typical, we don't use 60 miles an hour, even though trucks tend to be running a lot faster than that, but they idle a lot and then they pump a lot. So Medic 1, which is our first due ambulance, which was scheduled to be sent to the one line back to our second due last year, has got 66,000 miles on it, 68,000 miles on it. Oh, I'm sorry, 86,000 miles on it. So it's got 168,800 when you figure out the hours. The problem we're running into, folks, is that when I first started buying a fire truck, I would say I need it replaced in 2022 because we bought it 20 years before and we'll order it. And it'll be in 9 months. Maybe the end, maybe in 25 we'll get, maybe in 23 we'll get it. Now, you can see up there, Medic 2 was ordered in May, June of 2022. We still haven't gotten it. We may get it at the end of this month, at the end of 24 or into 25. And we just found out we had to switch from a Dodge to a Ford. And it may be another $15,000 to $20,000 because the chassis have changed. They write all this into the contracts that we sign. There's nothing we could do because they're not going to take the hit. Engine 1 that we ordered in 23, so after the last town meeting, we're not going to see that until August of 25. And the rescue that I just told you about, 49 months is what they're giving us for a date. So the rescue has already been skipped a year. It was supposed to be replaced last year. So that's 21 years. 4 more. So by the time we replace it, so that results in that far line, the maintenance line, going crazy. Unfortunately, because our trucks they get used. We're busy. You can see the ambulance. last year did 1,100, just one ambulance did 1,100 runs, right? The squad, which is our busiest rig, that this year, they're way up this year. Engine 2's done a little bit this year because it's been out of service for a couple months getting fixed. And that's the other thing, I can't get stuff fixed either. It takes months to get, because they can't get parts. So it's just crazy. So that's our CIP. I don't want to spend a lot of time in it because I know you guys, but I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Yeah, Chief, one question on that. Given that the ambulances are traditionally paid out of the revolving funds for that, if you were to try to pull an ambulance forward, do you then have the complication of that the revolving fund wouldn't have built up the
That's a
monies
great
to pay
question, because
for
I was
it?
just talking to Jason about something similar to this with the rescue, because the rescue traditionally was purchased, part of it was purchased out of the revolving fund because it does all motor vehicle accidents. So the way the EMS revolving fund works is the monies we charge to or pull out of it are for EMS, right? So they're either for overtime or supplies or ambulances, or the rescue, because the rescue, or the squad, because the squad runs all EMS calls as well. So we may have to do that because of the delays we're running into. So we may have to take one, if you were to look back one slide, you'll see that the next ambulance isn't due till 27. We may have to bop that up a year, or, and this is the big thing I need to talk to Tim about, and you guys, one of the things that a lot of the vendors are doing now and saying, hey, sign a contract with us, we'll lock the price in, we'll put you in the queue, and it'll say in the contract, contingent on passing town meeting on dun, dun, dun. Really tempting to do. Really tempting, because it locks us in, it puts us in the queue, gets us billed a little bit quicker. And if it fails town meeting, I guarantee they're going to sell it. So that's why they don't mind doing that.
Yeah.
So this is something that they've really started pushing. But as far as with the ambulance and the rotation, it could be tight, but it's only, we pay $100,000 we take out of there for debt service, I believe.
Well, we've
Depending on
tried to function with a replacement plan that's based on the most recent purchase.
Yeah.
So I think every year, I think it's up to 133 per
Sounds about
year
right.
now because of the $400,000 price
Yep.
range of ambulances.
Yeah,
So-
well, the next one we buy is going to be 550. It's
Okay.
just, yeah, it's nuts. Any other questions before I leave CIP?
No, but it sounds like that's what you've got to look at your replacement schedule now, given the lead times, but then can you pull it forward? Maybe take advantage of those seller options to.
Yeah,
lock
one of the other things we've been looking at everything. We're looking at demos. We're looking at, I'm not going to buy used. I hate to say this, but I've bought used before, and you're buying somebody else's problem.
Yes.
Unless you're buying from a very, very wealthy department that never used the truck and it just sat there as a pretty piece. Otherwise, you're buying somebody else's issues. But demos aren't bad if you can find them, but they're getting scooped up the second they become available. So they're not as easy as they used to be. So the budget itself, when I do our budget, I do a 6-year trend to look and see where we are. And you guys should have a page, this page is something very similar to it, Jason,
Yeah,
because this is
I've-
just like the one you sent me.
I think they have your
Okay.
spreadsheet.
And
with the-
this is simply the general fund, so I don't have the revolving fund in here.
We may not have.
We don't have it.
It should be all the way towards the back. It should say at the top, increase/decrease. Because it was in the packet I sent. It's like the second
Let me just
page
check
from the
to make
back.
sure it wasn't stapled to anything.
Don't see it.
Yeah, I don't think we have it. We didn't get it electronically either.
Well, it's on the screen for now.
Oh, yeah,
see it on screen.
Please continue.
Get it later.
So, this budget is a level service budget, so there's no increases in service in this budget. We did hire the deputy, if you guys recall, halfway through the year last year, so we have to absorb the rest of that cost. There is step increases for those. There's contractual increases for the firefighters that we have no control over, right? So that they've been negotiated. That therefore drives overtime, drives longevity, drives holiday pay. That's all driven through the contract. So when your wage increases by 3.5%, everything increases by 3.5%. So it has a rolling effect. However, you're going to look and say, well, hang on, longevity's down by $500. How could that be? Well, we've had some turnover. We've had senior people retire. Captain Hurst, who had been here forever, retired. We've had some other people. We've had a little bit more turnover than I'd like, but we've had some people that are, right now, they can shop for where they want. And if they find somebody that they feel is going to treat them better, has a better fire station, has better equipment, and they do less calls, they're going to go. And so we've had a lot of turnover. That's why you'll see the number for firefighter salaries, while up, really isn't up drastically. It's up, what, $13,000.
If you hit that cancel button on the screen, the touch
It
screen.
shut down again. I keep telling them.
Fast enough.
So all of those personal service lines, not all of them, most of them are up like, 1.96% or 0.97%. Just your typical raises, your typical increases. Utilities are up 26.66%. Wow, why so much? Well, because last year there was this really stupid fire chief that didn't pay attention. And when Sean Thompson said, you need to increase your budget by this much, I said, okay. And that's all I did was say, okay.
Oh.
I completely missed it. There's just so much going on sometimes, and it was just one I missed. So unfortunately, I'm making up for the shortage of last year and this year, because this year we're budgeted at 41,000, and the last bill put us right about 38 expended. So we know that we're gonna overspend that line, and that just keeps going up. So I increased that. That's why that line's up by $11,000. Vehicle maintenance, as I told you, it's just going to keep going up. I actually had to increase that. It is March 20th, and I have overspent both my fire apparatus vehicle maintenance and my EMS apparatus vehicle maintenance significantly. There's nothing I could do about it. The trucks just, the longer they last, we have to keep them on the road. Our ambulances are running, we do 68% EMS calls. Our ambulances are running crazy. So it's March, as I said, 20th. We've already done over 2,000 loaded transport miles. So what that means is from the scene to the hospital, we can charge. Okay, we charge we just increased it, $36 a mile. That's the only mileage we track. Well, I track regular mileage, but the only mileage I track in my report. For the whole year, loaded miles. That's crazy. So that's just from here to the hospital. That's not back, that's not going to the scene, that's not training, that's not doing everything else. So we're just so busy. It's not unusual to have three ambulance calls going at the same time. Happens to us all the time. We're stacking them sometimes. And when that happens, we get mutual aid have to come in.
What's driving the increase? Just out of curiosity.
It's pretty simple, actually. People are living longer, significantly longer, but not healthier. And what I mean by that is modern medicine has found ways to make people live longer, but we're taking them to the hospital a whole lot more. So when I run and we've talked before about my data.
Oh, yeah.
My data collection stuff, and he picks on me now about it too. So when I run my reports, all our patients, not all of our patients, a large majority of our patients are 55 and over. We have a lot that are 70, 80, 90, 100, right? All the older ones are all women, Janice. Any idea? The men just don't seem to make it that long, but the women, boy, I can tell you, it's impressive.
You know how old I am?
You're not very old. You're younger? No, I don't know. I probably could because yeah, 25? I'll go with that.
I've lived 40 years since having Kudamai at 47.
That's pretty awesome, isn't it? And that's what.
Is this the value?
That's the front line. That's the line budget, right? This is the one increase decrease. Is that what you want to talk about? I haven't seen that. It's all part of the packet that I sent you guys. I'll send it to you again if you need to. It should be, if you look at the spreadsheet, it's the second to last tab. If you have my whole thing, should be one there that says.
And we can
increase,
follow
decrease.
up with that.
But anyway.
Yeah, we can follow up.
Yeah, just send it.
So that's where we sit. So now I talked about utilities, equipment, vehicle maintenance. Equipment maintenance is down a little bit because we've replaced some of our batteries. We're running more and more of our tools are battery powered tools as opposed to gas powered tools, and they don't take quite as much maintenance to keep them in shape. Now, yes, we still have generators and we have some saws, but we also have a lot of saws that are battery powered. So the cost there is in materials and supply replacing the batteries, but we're not really fixing them necessarily. So the cost shifts a little bit, but there is a slight reduction there. Contracted services is simply up by 2,000 because contracted services includes the money that we pay we pay for all of our training. We pay for our computer services, not computer services, our computer programs. Computer services are all out of David's budget, and that's new this year. That's why you see a big drop in computer line of $10,000 because that all came out of our budget and went into his budget. So that's a big thing there. You see a whole bunch of zeros, no changes there. And overall, our budget is up, 67,000 is what I have, Jason? Is that what you have? That's what you had on that sheet you sent me.
$66,888.
There you go.
2.73%, if I read that. And that would be in the cell at the bottom there, right?
Yep. So we work hard on maintaining a level funded or a level service budget. Some of the things we've done this year, and I'm going to credit the guy behind me, so don't let his head swell. When he came on board, we were having this issue, and I was talking to him about the issue we were having with maintenance. He goes, "Hey, are you familiar with what Foxborough does?" I said, "Other than football, what else do they do?" Well, Foxborough Fire has opened up their own repair shop. And because their mechanic talked their chief into saying, "Hey, we could offset our repairs by bringing in other people and fixing their vehicles and charging them." Oh, and turns out Neil knows the mechanic very well because he used to work in Southborough, where Neil was from. Shop hours, we're paying $160 an hour for shop hours. In Foxborough, we're paying $90. Turnaround is half the time. And we're talking to somebody who's a firefighter and knows what we're talking about. So it has made such a difference. And now we can't take everything there because some stuff we can't drive down there. And if I tow it down there, I've just burned up all of my savings, right? So if I have to tow it, sometimes we'll tow it to Marlboro, we'll tow it to Shrewsbury and that. But it's really helped a lot, and we're going to keep that relationship going. It's been an outstanding relationship. And my mechanic, so I have a guy that does all of our lighter work and coordinates all that. He's got a great relationship with Owen. They work back and forth, and he can call him and pick his brain. So it's worked out really well. So that's where our budget sits. Now, I'm sure you guys have some questions on it, so I'm here for that.
Can I add one thing
Oh,
too?
please.
And I think this may have been overlooked in the discussion, but that 937 number that I had pointed your attention to get to the recreation mechanics, there's also about approximately $400,000 transfer from the ambulance revolving fund to underwrite this budget up here, the 2.5. So taxpayers are only exposed to about 2.1 million of the 2.5.
366, 377 from EMS revolving, and then another 11,000 from hazmat revolving. So I have two revolving accounts that we utilize. So that comes directly out, and it does the same way that Jason was talking about with rec. It builds up over the year, and then on July 1st, that large amount of money comes right out and goes directly in and helps offset. And then we also charge to that. And I charge probably around $650,000, $750,000 direct to that account as well. Overtime and supplies and just replacing all of our medical supplies is outrageously because we have to pay for everything. It's not like, we get it for free. So it gets very expensive.
That helps explain for folks when they see that budget article.
Yeah, I
and-
know it
and
gets
all those
confusing
lines.
sometimes that,
that
we've
those
heard
are
the
those
comment in the
pieces
past
transferring
that
in.
we've already paid $400,000 toward the ambulance. Why are we appropriating it again? It's really a transfer out of the EMS revolving fund, which underwrites the activities within the general fund's budget. So it's not double counted, but it is offsetting the cost of this $2.5 million budget that we're looking at.
Right, if you look at like educational incentives, a lot of the educational incentives are EMS based. So those we figure how much of that, and that's part of the transfer. There's a formula that Jason and John had worked out well before I came here. It's a great formula, and it just makes it really easy.
It's long established.
Yeah, it makes it
The
so
method
easy.
for coming up with the amount has been long established, but it's basically just an amount that we have to get to.
It's all linked. I just put the numbers in there, and it figures it out. I love it, so.
Any questions for the chief? Any additional, on the budget?
Well, on the budget, I'm
We
sure
still
you got
got a-
questions about this other
We're only
stuff, so-
two in the 4-and-1, right?
Yeah, two out of the 4-and-1, that is correct. That's the next
I
one.
don't have any questions because I cannot read the numbers on that screen.
Yeah, so
So
when,
not having, not having the numbers, I
I don't know why.
heard what you said, but, it's kind of hard to look at the budget when you can't see it.
so like our other, fire hose, to intend the pun, of the information, right? We may have some follow-up questions for you.
Yeah.
That'll come through, Jason.
Oh, it's not a problem at all.
Similar process as when we get that part of the packet. If there's any questions on that, get the questions to Jason, and then he'll get them to the chief.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Want to talk about SAFER?
Sure. Yes, please.
The Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response. So SAFER was developed by the federal government to assist local fire departments with achieving the necessary minimum staffing to deploy and to safely fight fires and emergencies. It's to fulfill traditional fire department mission. So that includes ambulance, emergency medical service, prevention, risk reduction, all of those things. What you can't do is hire strictly EMS people. You can't do that. It has to be fire-related people. It started out quite a few years ago, and it's had many iterations, many different ways that they've done it. Everything from a gradual defunding, so it would be a 4-year grant, it would be 100%, 75, 50, 25 to, and that you'd have to keep people. If you laid people off, you had to pay them back, and it's changed numerous different ways. Right now, it's 36 months, 100% funded. And the way they figure that funding is if it's a contractual item, it's considered to be funded. Okay. So minimum staffing levels that we need to reach for an initial building fire assignment is 15 people, okay, on a fire ground. I have 5 on duty. As an example, we had a fire the other day out on Green Street. It was a reported box truck fire, 5 feet from the house, and the truck was full of insulation. You guys know Green Street, we don't have any hydrants out there. So that's a full first alarm assignment, which means I have Berlin coming, I have Marlboro coming, I have all on the initial tone. I also had an ambulance that was gone and in the hospital, so I had 3 guys in-house. That was it. So those other companies are coming, they're far out. I responded and the deputy responded, but we're not always around. We're, lots of times doing stuff. In order to reach that 15 number, we've taken all kinds of steps, such as automatic mutual aid agreements with all these neighbors that we have. And we've gotten close. The SAFER grant would get us to where we need to be by hiring those 2 people per shift. And it's going to get us where we need to be even if we drop 1 person. So, and what I mean by that is if we hire 2 people per shift, it allows us to have some flexibility with vacation, sick, without having to fill 1 person. As opposed to if we hire 1 person per shift, we have to fill that position all the time. Yeah. Right? So we've done all those things to get where we need to get. And the history of the staffing in the fire department, I don't know.
Get that canceled. There we go.
I'm going to do something. Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, buddy.
Got it inside.
You need to just sit over there and hit the button. We were funded originally, an all volunteer department, and EMS was a separate third party. It was part of Northborough, but it was a separate. Eventually, they went to 24/7, 365, but they only had two firefighters working. As things got busier, we went from basic life support to advanced life support, so we have paramedics on the ambulance. The goal was to have a staffing level of 1 officer and 3 firefighters on duty 24 hours a day. It took until 2009 to get that staffing level, just because of, slowly stepping up and getting where we needed to get. In 2002, Chief Durgan had requested that we increase it to 6 members per shift. And then in 2009, when Avalon and Chops Way came in, somewhere there was an agreement that said, hey, we're going to hire 6 firefighters for you. And this is and they paid for our tower truck, or they helped offset the cost of a tower at the time. Positions were never filled. And I cannot find anywhere why. And the same thing happened with the police. Police had been told that they were going to get people, and they never got people. Now, I don't know. I wasn't around. I would be speculating, and I have no intent on doing that. So I have no idea why they didn't get filled.
It was 2009, and then it was a pretty tough time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. 2013, Chief Durgan started pushing for 1 officer and 7 firefighters, and a full deputy chief, and a full-time deputy chief, and a full-time fire prevention officer. When that happened, the town said, you know what? We need to do a study. So they did that study, which I don't know if how many of you have ever read it. It's a fairly comprehensive study. It was focused just on emergency services. And it looked at what do we need for fire, what do we need for police. And based on that study, they said, okay, we need 4 firefighter paramedics and 1 officer on duty 24/7. Now that was based on 2013, 2014 numbers, not 2015 numbers, because they were doing the study for a while. And they wanted the construction of a new station. And they based those on several things: the population at the time, the calls for service, ambulance transports, unit workload. Unit workload is different from incidents. We could say we have 2,500 incidents a year, but our unit workload could be 4,000 or 5,000, because some incidences get 3 trucks or some incident, right? So we have to look at unit workload versus incidences, two different animals. In 2018, we finally got, and this was after I was hired, we finally got to the 5 people per shift, because I got hired, if you guys remember, in 16. God, a long time ago. We finally got to that staffing. In 2017, I went to the town administrator, and said, look, there's this thing called the SAFER grant. I really think this is something we need. I'm going to have our guys draft it. And I had a committee get together. They drafted it all up. They brought it forward. And one thing with the SAFER grant, it's the only grant that I'm aware of through the federal government that they won't even talk to you if you don't have a signature or a letter from your executive administrator. So either the Board of Selectmen or the Select Board or the town administrator, town manager has to send a letter that says, we will support this grant. I couldn't get that letter. I couldn't get that letter signed. So kind of went away. Several times through the course of 2017 to 2023, I kept saying, hey, I need people. SAFER's still out there. I need people. And we just, I did supplemental grants. So when we submitted our budget, then we submitted a supplemental budget, asking for whatever else. And I did several supplemental budgets asking for people, asking for the deputy chief. I just got the deputy last year, as you all know that. In June of 23, we kind of hit a critical point. So we had just come through COVID. The guys and girls were getting beat up pretty bad. The physical and mental health was starting to deteriorate, and I could see it. I could see that the workload, I could see them getting angry. I could see if I had to force someone to work because I had someone out sick, it was like the end of the world. And that's when people started looking and started leaving us. So I went to, at that time, the interim, and I said, look, I'm going to drop to 4 people. And I don't want to do it, but if I have to drop to 4 people, I will. Now, this was in June of 23. I've only dropped 180 hours because the guys have stepped up as that many times and said, we'll cover. Will you let me work an extra shift? Can I work more than my 48? Can I do this? And they've covered it. But 180 hours, we just haven't, they're done. They can't work it. And they need that time because we do a lot of nasty stuff and they need that time to recoup. So, and I told the town administrator, I said, and by the way, I'm going to be coming back for SAFER. Just so you know, I'm going to be coming back for SAFER. So I did. I went to the select board and I sent to the select board and I presented all this to them. This is a presentation. I said, this is why. I said, all I'm asking for you at this time is to support us. Because I'm not going to have a group go out and headed by the deputy and draft this fairly comprehensive grant and then be told by you guys, now we're not supporting it. So they unanimously supported it and told us to go ahead, and the deputy went to work with a group. The NOFO, you guys familiar with the term NOFO as far as grants go? It's Notice of Funding Opportunity. Firefighters love acronyms. It's just so cool. So the NOFO came out. The grant is open right now. Deputy and his team are working on it. It closes on April 12th.
Yes.
Oh, what a guess. It closes on April 12th, so it's got to be submitted by April 12th. It's then reviewed several ways. One of the ways it's reviewed is electronically. So they run it through the computer, see if it matches everything, and then it's reviewed by a board of fire chiefs. from all over the country that go down to the National Fire Academy in Evansburg, and they read these things. Then they start awarding, and they start awarding June, July, and depending where you get it, you could get an award in June, you could get an award in January. When you get the award, you have 6 months to hire, and then your 3 years start, because they know how hard it is to hire. So what kind of benefits are we going to get from this? We're going to get firefighter health and wellness, which is just leads to improved service to our people. It's pretty simple. The ability to respond to additional and overlapping calls. I ran a query this morning. In the last 2.5 years, we had over 900 overlapping calls, meaning we were on a call, had either a second or third or a fourth call. When that happens, we can't cover some of those because one medical call takes 4 people. I have one person back at the station. So now we have to call mutual aid. And what happens when we call mutual aid in? They get the ambulance bill that we were just talking about that goes into the revolving account. So by hiring people, there's an estimated potential increase in our funds of $120,494. We may be able to bring that much more money in because that's how much money we gave up in transports, right? And the reason I say estimate, the calls could go up or down. I don't know. We could have less calls next year or less overlapping calls, but then that's an estimate of where we are. And adding 2 additional members to 7 gives us the option of dropping a person. If I drop that person and drop to 6, I'd say it's about $254,000 a year. So it doesn't save, it won't increase that much more. So I can have that savings. If I have 7 people per shift, somebody calls out sick, like I have a guy out sick tomorrow, I don't have to fill that shift. If I have 6 people per shift and someone calls out sick, I have to fill that shift because otherwise we're running too low. If you guys have any questions as I'm zipping through here, just don't be afraid. That way I can back up.
Yeah, so just to refresh me, how many members you got right now?
So I have 20 career members, or 20 line personnel. So there's 5 people on duty, 4 shifts.
Okay.
There's myself, the deputy.
5 people, 4 shifts, okay.
Yeah. There's myself, the deputy, that work Monday through Friday and whenever we have to. There's a part-time hazardous material, and there's an admin executive.
Okay. Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay?
So when if assuming you get this grant, you have to fill all 8. Is that part of it? You have to fill all 8. So the 3-year, it's not staggering 3-year terms. It's all you onboard them.
You onboard them for, you have 6 months to onboard them. You have 6 months to hire.
Okay, and once you get that last one, it gets that one, that 3 years.
Well, the money actually will start, but yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then and that covers the salary, benefits, and everything. And
So that covers it. What it doesn't cover is, I think I had that in.
yeah, overtime. I see it doesn't.
It doesn't cover overtime. It doesn't cover uniforms. It doesn't cover protective equipment. It doesn't cover training. Right,
Okay,
so I have to send them away for training. It doesn't cover the backfill hours.
I'm familiar with a little bit with police, but not fire. So with the training, is there a basic academy that they have to do? That's
So if we hire paramedics, they have to go, but they're not firefighters or they're not academy trained firefighters. It's a 10-week course.
okay.
If I hire firefighters and they're not paramedic, at the best it's an 18-month course. So it's a much longer course, much harder to become a paramedic than it is to be trained firefighter. So both of those have to be covered. The difference is fire academy is Monday through Friday, 10 weeks. EMS or paramedic training is 2 days a week, maybe from 6 o'clock at night to 10, depending when their classes are. So you're not filling the full 24-hour shift, but it spreads out.
Are you?
Oh, go ahead.
Um,
That's why I brought it.
The other opportunity we have is because people are shopping around, if we make our job attractive, we can attract people that are already paramedics and already academy trained. We actually just hired one, and the reason being is that it's because he lives in Northborough, so he wanted to come back. But so there's that opportunity too. So we don't necessarily have to send everybody to training.
Yeah.
But when we send them to training, we're paying for their training, right? Whoever's
There is
providing.
no cost, there is no cost for the fire academy.
Okay, so it's only you're paying.
We're paying their salary and we're paying to backfill them. Right, so they're gone, I have to fill their position on the shift.
On the shift. Although if the shifts right now are staffed of 5 and that's your minimum, you might not have to necessarily backfill them. You would sometimes have to backfill
No, I have to
them.
backfill them now all the time. I may drop the 4, but only on rare occasions, because the way we do it is we only drop the 4 if I can't fill it.
So if we go from 5 to 7,
Different animal, right.
and then 2 of them have to go off for training,
Yeah.
then you're still okay.
Yeah, we don't have to fill one
You're not
position.
paying for the actual training, but are they going, so you mentioned some go like in the evenings, whatever, for the training, like the EMS. Is that done on overtime, or do you factor it in a work week?
So if
I guess I'm
somebody-
asking like how much
No,
you're
that-
paying for
It's
this.
a great question. If they're, so for the fire academy, they get released. You're gone. They don't get any extra pay, they get no overtime pay. They get released for 10 weeks to go to the fire academy. If they're at the fire academy for a 10-hour day or a 12-hour day, then they're at the fire academy for a 12-hour day. If they have to do a weekend, they have to do a weekend. But they don't do any time with us, right? So they're there,
So Safer's paying their salary to go be at training for
They're there.
10 weeks, okay.
okay? EMS is, it's an 18-month program, but when they're not in class, we have them, right? So if it's a Saturday and they don't have school, they're on duty. If it's a Monday and they have classes Tuesday and Thursday, then they're on duty. So we get them. They only have to be released on the days they have school.
But you're factoring their school time in their schedule?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I understand. So, and I guess then the big question is what happens after 36 months?
I'll get you in a
Okay.
couple slides.
Okay.
That's a great question, right? So, just to give you some data, and I stayed with 2022 numbers because I know those are good, solid numbers. Not that 2023 isn't solid numbers, but as I had mentioned before, I like data and I like to be accurate with my data, and I've run these numbers like 10 times, so I know they're super accurate. So in 2015, our population was about 14,000. In 2022, our population, or in 2020, our population was closer to 16,000. We had 2,025 calls for service, and in 2022, we did 2,553. So that changes, obviously, your calls for a day. Two or more times, we had 216 calls. 216 calls times we had 2 or more calls in 15. 373 times we had 2 or more calls, right? 54 times we had 3 or more calls versus 22, and 13 times we had 4 or more calls versus 4. The big number I want to draw you to is that next one. Ambulance transports, 962 in 2015, 1,446 in 2022. And understand, an ambulance call is not like I'm going out, checking the alarms, resending it and coming back. An ambulance call is they go, they get the patient, they treat the patient, they transport to the hospital. Sometimes they're holding the wall. You guys have seen all the news articles about what hospitals are like, right? Sometimes I have ambulances, what they call holding the wall, standing in the ER for an hour with a patient on a stretcher. So they're gone that whole time. So the workload per unit has also gone up by about 1,000, a little over 1,000. So we've had all these increases, much more than was predicted in the study that was done in 2015. Okay? We also, on top of that, have required training. We do detail. So every time somebody welds, every time somebody does blasting, every time, the football games, we provide EMS details. Those are all extra hours. We've conducted over 1,000 inspections. We issued over 1,000 permits. We now have both the Senior Safe and the Safe Youth program. So we did over 72 events with over 4,500 interactions. Those are all extra hours that these guys are working in access, most of them, to the shift work. So, the overview is we hire 8 people, 100% for all salary benefits and any contractual costs for 36 months. Not eligible cost or overtime, training, hours, firefighter gear, etc. At the end of 36 months, town's responsible for absorbing that cost. How do we do that? Total grant in 25, and these are numbers that Jason had put together, so they could still, these were projections, so we may have to massage them somewhat, but right now, the total grant would be expected to be $935,948. Right? Total grant is $2,807,000. In fiscal year 28, the end of the grant, it would be $993,236. Well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is contractual raises. We're a union shop. They get their contractual raises. Not much we can do about that. The way the SAFER grant works is it's funded based off that first year. So it's based on the $935,948 for 3 years. So if you take that final number and you divide it by 4, you come up with $248,309. Well, what does that mean? It means if we increase our budget each year by $248,309, we avoid creating our own structural deficit in our budget. So we don't hit year 4 and be short $993,000. Well, what are we gonna use that money for? Remember that stuff I said that they don't cover? They don't cover the cost for training, they don't cover the cost for EMS training, they don't cover equipment, they don't cover uniforms. That's what that money will be used for, to help offset those costs. And then by the time we hit year 3, those costs will be taken care of. So the impact on that last year will be $248,000 of an increase. If we wait until the final year, I think that would be a huge mistake. I think that's expecting too much of the citizens. That would be a huge deficit that we're going into. And if, depending on how things are in the economy at that time, that's going to cause problems. Now, our grant is 2.8. Worcester just got one, a safer grant for 8 point something. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're going to be saving money every 4 years or increasing it, but that's, imagine that hit at the end of their, now they're a bigger community, but that's still a pretty big hit. So that's the safer grant. That's how I propose we, at the end of 4 years, are funded in order to cover it.
I'm not understanding how that works.
I mean,
Okay.
like, what happens
Why
1
not?
year later? Because if it's pretty much $1 million a year,
We've
Yeah.
increased our budget to that $1 million. So.
but that will cover year 5. But then what? Unless you're,
So if our budget in year, right now is $1 million, and that covers everything, right? So we increase our budget up to, and it's gonna cost us another $1 million a year to cover those guys.
yeah.
We slowly increase our budget 4 years till we've increased it by $1 million. And now we have that extra $1 million, that $1 million keeps going with us because we've increased it every year. So our budget's gone from $1 million to 1.25.
I see what you're saying. So what you're saying is that in 1 year, it's 250,000 more.
The next year we increase
Next
by
year
another
it's
250.
500,000 more.
So
Then
it
it's
goes-
750 more.
There
Then
you
it's
go.
$1 million more.
It goes from
So
1.25 to 1.5 to 1.75 to 2. And then, so we don't have that big hit at the end of the year. Does that make sense?
it does.
It would be
Does that
better
make
if we saw it
sense
on a
to
table.
It still sounds painful, but it makes sense.
So basically, we're committing to increase
The budget by $1 million.
budget by that much.
Over the course of 4
Not
years, yeah.
dealing with all the other issues that are there.
Right.
Not dealing with increase in utilities, increase in equipment, increase in
Man,
maintenance.
this is a massive increase in manpower, essentially.
It is. And
So-
and I can tell you that it's needed, for sure.
And if I
Well,
can just
jump
say,
in.
sorry, Tim, I just want to hit that real quick. You know, it's kind of, Robert made me think of it is, so what does 5 people actually do, right? So you got a call volume of 25 plus 100 calls a year, 5 people, you know, what does that mean? So I come from Southborough, was my department I was at before. They do just shy of 1,500 calls. The
1,000
exact
calls
same-
less than we do.
The exact same staffing model. And they actually want more staff, but, so you can see, Westboro, Chief, you can help me out this.
Westboro does about 3,000, 4,000 calls more than we do, and they have more than double the staffing.
Did you have a thought you needed to finish, George?
Let Tim go. and then-
Okay, yeah, Tim.
If you go back to the 2015, 2022 slide.
Cancel.
Cancel.
Hit the cancel.
Thank you.
Thanks, Neil.
The bottom line, their workload per unit, 3,224. 2022, 4,352. Quick math, that's a 35 to 40% increase.
In per unit, yeah.
And you're going from 20 to 28 frontline firefighters, correct? That's a 40% increase in staff. So the workload from 2015 to 2022 has gone up by 35 to 40%, which means you need to increase your staff by 35 to 40% in order to cover the increased workload. What's happening right now is that 35 to 40% workload is being absorbed by 20 people, when in actuality, it sounds like you need 28 people.
Correct.
And those 20 people are starting to bear the brunt mentally, physically, leaving. And to Deputy Chief Neal's comment, I know how difficult in this labor environment it is to find people in any profession, especially municipal work, firefighters, police officers. And if a firefighter is out there looking for work and they look at Northborough and they see this information, they see our fire station, they know what the workload's going to be, they know there's no hope for that workload to go down, it's only going to go up. Why would anybody want to come and be a firefighter in Northborough?
Correct. And
So it's, I know $1 million is a lot of money to bear on the budget in 4 years, but if it's needed, it's needed.
And another very important thing to grasp is every time we lose one of those firefighters, so when I hire a firefighter, it's $4,000 for turnout gear that's custom fitted to them. It's training, it's and the fire academy, all that backfill, sending him to school, to the paramedic class that we do cover. So all of that money we pay, and then they leave. And now I have to hire someone else and do it all again.
I just want, and if we were to bring in the 8 people under this grant, in 3 years when the grant ends, we have 3 years to determine if we actually need 8 people.
Correct.
At the end of the 3 years, if we don't need 8, we only need 2, in theory, you can let 6 of those people go and only keep 2. Like if the calls don't warrant that number of, it's not like it's not a contractual obligation to keep those people on.
Which is one of the changes they made to SAFER over the years. When SAFER first started, you had to. You didn't have an option. You had to keep those people. And they found that people weren't applying for it for that very reason, because they didn't know where 3 years was going to take them, or 4 years at the time. So now, and you couldn't use it to hire laid off people. You couldn't use it for retention. You couldn't use it for any of that. They've changed all that so you can use it, because they saw that's where the problem is. And they say, we don't want you to lay them off after 3 years, but we can't predict what 3 years out is going to do. So we understand communities needing to go, okay, let's take a look and see what's happening.
So if the if the workload isn't there to justify the increase, if the economy is in a place where the town can't afford to take on that sort of increase in staffing cost, the town is under no obligation to take that on. We could just lay the guys off, or I shouldn't say that, we could just lay firefighters.
We'd lay the positions off. It may not be those people, because we have a lot of guys who we may have had turnover by then, so who knows?
Right. But it's just I think that's an important consideration. To me, you have a 3-year test run, that if you need the people or not.
And you get, I think what's good too, you get the people immediately, so it's an immediate reduction in the per person workload. So hopefully it stems that turnover almost immediately.
I've seen, so what's happening now, Mr. Chair, is we have guys that by the time they get a chance to sit down and do their reports, they're 4 reports deep for medical reports. Now understand, those are legal documents, those medical reports. And I can't pull them off the road because I don't have anyone else to cover for them. So 8 o'clock rolls around the next morning, they can't go home, because I don't let them go home, because they have to finish their reports, because those are medical documents that have to get to the hospital. And we can't bill without those medical documents. So sometimes we're paying people overtime just to finish off the reports.
I think I've asked you about that before, seeing the monthly reports and the number of overtime hours, and this explains a lot of the overtime hours.
Yep.
So I do appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate what you're saying, that it's kind of like almost like a free trial, but it's not, in that we do have to start paying $250,000 into the fire department's budget. I'm just curious, because we only saw on the screen, where is that number for this fiscal year for 25? Where do you have that, this $250,000 that we'll have
It's
to?
not in this fiscal year because we don't have the grant.
So you'd be planning to start the savings in fiscal year 26? Okay. But then we'll still be a little behind then, right?
It depends when the grants, and here's the problem, we don't know when the grant's going to be awarded. We don't know I'm not going to ask this community to put $250,000 into a grant that we may not get. That would be irresponsible. Or if the grant may not come in until January. Again, that's irresponsible. I don't know. So we have to wait until we find out where that is, and then we have to proceed from there.
And we do have that 6-month window to hire,
Yep.
so, you know, it gets awarded in September, you know, it can actually, we can delay, we can get them all ready to hire, but actually, it'll actually impact the next fiscal year.
My concern with this is, again, our goal as a committee is we look at what's happening with our appropriations budget, our operating budget, and we do it year by year by year. We have had things come through that we've gotten hit with in the past where it's like, oh, well, this was a grant, but now we're paying for it. And it's a given that we're just going to accept that. So part of it is when we have something like this, we're really making a decision for future years, and we're kind of making that decision a little blind. And the other thing that concerns me is, we went through police and we went through their numbers, and it was very clear they needed to add, and looking at your numbers, it means very clearly we need to add. There are additional staff showing up in other places, in other departments. And one of the things we may have to do in order to kind of manage kind of the impact on the town, et cetera, is weight the requests we get in. And it's very hard to weight the requests when you don't know exactly what it is or when it's going to hit. So part of it is maybe we need to be looking, maybe we need a little bit more of a, we do it with the capital program. We say this is where the expenses are going to hit. We don't do it with operating, but then at the end of the year, next year, we will find out, well, these are the things, these are the structural things that the decisions you made last year or 2 years ago or 3 years ago built into the budget. And they're non-negotiable, they're just there. And I just think we need to be able to kind of look a little bit forward and make sure we know what we're committing to down the road. And, you know, staffing is an area where any new staff member becomes a structural part of the budget, and it just changes your baseline. And I'm a little concerned about this. And actually, one of the things I like about this and what you've done in talking through this is look at it from the standpoint of how do we avoid this becoming just $1 million hit in 3 years?
You have to.
Well, we don't do that often when we
don't, yeah.
add staff on grants. And so I think it's just something we need to think through, and I think we should be doing it, not just here, but we should be doing it across the board, wherever the staff is being added, or wherever we have a grant. We have to think about what is the impact when that grant ends, because they all end.
And Chief, is this a all or not, is it 8 or nothing? Is it, or could it be 4? Could it be 6? Or is there wiggle room? If you were to apply for the grant now and you were to get it, could you then make a decision as to, could you essentially make a decision then as to how many of the 8 you're approved that you're gonna take on?
Whatever you apply for
Is what you get.
gotta take.
So what you apply for, you have to know when you do the application, which is like in a month, you have to, that's when the decision's made, okay.
And I'll say, when we talk to.
Go ahead and get the budget.
I got two things. When we talked to, I believe it was Mike, was the interim at the time, I believe it was Mike. So I'll give you the story. Mike, he had experience as a town administrator in other places, had knowledge of the SAFER program. And the chief and I came in to meet him, and we said, oh, well, we're interested in putting in for the SAFER. And oh, yeah, I know what it is, you know, we're thinking about 8. And he's like, yeah, no. And that was like right off the bat. We got some numbers, Jason ran some numbers of what the savings would be, what the increased income would be, balance it all out, put it in form. First thing he said when he sat down in this room to go over it was, you need 8. 4 is gonna do nothing for you, because 8 is gonna be the money factor. That's, and Jason, you're the one that ran the numbers, but 8 is where you start to make more money and you start to save more money, because we can run that other ambulance with only one person
Oh, I
extra
see.
shift.
I
Run
see.
that ambulance.
Okay.
We can't drop from 6 to 5, we can
Right.
drop from 6. So there's.
So
all
you're
that-
still missing calls because you're occupied.
So that's where the 8 number kind of came from.
Got
And
it.
believe you me, we could use more than 8, but 8 will get us into a reasonable spot that'll make a significant difference in the response aspect. And then from the, George, for yours, you know, the chief, and I applaud him, he's coming up with creative ideas, you know, and, you know, it's just an option, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
if it comes up that, you know, maybe it, you know, it's less than 250, or maybe it's next year, we see what the balance was, and then you make a decision out of that, but that's where that kind of drive was coming from.
Yeah, and the reason I wanted to get here now is because we don't need to do it now. I wanted to sit and say, this is what SAFER is, this is why we want to apply for it, we're gonna apply for it, and if we get it, this is what we need to do. So I wanted to make sure that you were ahead of this, a year ahead, hopefully.
Well,
before we get-
and again, part of it is, let's assume this grant didn't exist at all. You would be looking for 8 more people.
Yep.
And we would need to figure out how we would go about doing that, and we probably couldn't all do it in 1 year, in one fell swoop, et cetera.
Correct.
But if if the workload is increasing, et cetera, and you've got a little bit, I mean, I worked in healthcare, and, you know, you don't staff for your average, you have to staff for your peaks.
Yep.
Right? So it's an interesting dilemma, and if we don't take care of this, we're gonna be in trouble. So part of it is you can look at it from the standpoint of what is happening and what are we gonna have to increase in the future. But we need to have, just like with capital, we need to have a plan, not only what's happening this year, but what we have going forward. And maybe part of what I'm proposing is we look at what we do in appropriations a little bit different from the standpoint, because again, if we make decisions that have large impacts down the road, not looking at that or not even acknowledging that, you know, it's a bit of a problem. And so that's the only objection I have here. And actually, like I said, this is the first time I've seen a grant with adding staffing where some thought has been made of what do we do when the grant goes away?
What happens?
So that's an important thing, and we should be doing that all the time.
I think we should too, and again, so your question is, if we didn't have the grant, right? Well, this grant's due to sunset,
Yeah, it's just gonna.
when's it due to sunset?
Well,
September?
so the way it's,
Yeah.
so it's a federal funded
Yeah.
grant, and we all know how the federal government.
I mean, I have no problem with
Right
the
now.
grant aspect of it, because it's like, if we don't get, you know, it's like, you don't look askance at it kind of thing. But I'm just saying, we need to project kind of what the impact is.
So
going forward.
I think what Tim said is giving me some thought is that there is a cost to attrition. Attrition's expensive.
Absolutely.
And you know, and Tim's saying like, well, why would you want to come work here? Well, also if you are working here, you're seeing the green grass on every other yard, you know, so what's going to keep you on our side of the fence? And if we keep on bleeding good people, there's a huge cost to that. That's
Oh, yeah.
monetary. It's not just morale. It's not just, oh, how are we going to backfill this? But there's, you know, it's
Safety of the community.
Let me
It
give you
is, it
a great
is.
example. And this hurts me to say this. I had 2 guys that left and went to another department. They went to the same department. They were actually poached. And that's becoming more and more common. Medics run into another medic at the hospital. Hey, how's things going over there? Oh, we don't get a break. We're running straight out. Looks like the station's falling down. Oh, really? We're hiring. 2 guys, 5 years. One of them headed up our senior safe program. The other one was heading up our quarterly inspection program. Both paramedics, both awesome people, lost them within 30 days of each other. Both to the same department for a cut in pay.
really.
They took less money to go there.
That's the biggest indication that there's
Yep.
something
That's when
structurally wrong.
They took less money to go, and I went, oof. Now, a month before that, I lost a guy to Natick for $20,000 more a year because their way that their contract is structured. Well, so that's also a hit. $20,000, I can't afford it, right? But when those 2 guys left, and I said, well, how much more are you making? They said, we're taking a cut. I went, wow.
So why do you think they actually left? Was it physical condition?
You're gonna answer, because I'm
Was
afraid to
it
answer it, but
The
yeah.
atmosphere? Are you a SOB?
Oh, I am, but that's besides the point.
So all the above, including the last one. So when I came on, you know, it was sad to see, and I came in, there was all this turmoil, even in town government, because Tim wasn't here at the time, so it was all that unknown and speculation. So that was one factor of, there was the unknown of what's gonna happen with the fire department, what's gonna happen with staffing, what's gonna happen with the station, all those. So we did an internal survey, because there's articles all over the place about behavioral health and how staffing is impacting morale and such. So we did a study with all different factors and such. And the overworkload was by far number one. The facilities was big, because, you know, they're just on top of each other. The perception of lack of support from the town and town boards, and it was a perception thing, and we actually mitigated that one by having one-on-one meetings with the select board and such, but.
Each member of the select board came down and spoke to us one-on-one.
So, and these are the perceptions they got, and, you know, the fire service, I don't wanna say it's unique, but it's definitely unique, is you live together, so when you're home, and, you know, one kid starts barking, the other kid starts barking, the other kid starts barking, and there's no parent there, you know, and I don't mean this, guys, if you're watching, I'm not saying anything negative.
Oh, they know.
But, if, you know, they start barking, now it starts feeding and feeding and feeding, then one guy finds an out, and everybody else goes, oh, I'm gonna get out too. And another guy, I'm gonna get out too. And then what do we fill it back with? We've gotta scrape the bottom of the barrel.
We lost 3 guys in 2 months' time. And and right now, I have 2 guys in medic school, 1 guy gonna be going to medic school after he gets out of the academy. No, 2 guys are gonna be going to medic school after they get out of the academy. So I'm hiring basics, because I can't find paramedics.
Do they sign like a service agreement? So if you send them to basic school, that they're gonna work for you for so many years?
So that's, yes, but that's just recent. So what I did is when I decided to make this change and say we're gonna hire basics and train them, and we're gonna pay 50% of their tuition, they have to sign an agreement. They owe us 5 years. And each year they stay, their payback drops.
Got it. Good.
Now, it's only for the cost of the class. So for the fire
Yes,
academy.
doesn't cover their time,
we
just for the cost of the class.
can't recoup, and then people have talked about trying to do it of, well, if we send you to the fire academy and you leave, what are we gonna recoup? Well, we can't recoup salary. We can't take back what you paid, and that program is free, so.
There's several chiefs I know that have contracts in place for that, and they've never been able to successfully,
They'll never be enforced in any court I'm aware of.
they can't get them back. But when we're paying for a class,
Right.
So really, our goal is to get people to want to stay.
Yep.
That's the main goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, again, for me, it comes back to the impact that this has on the safety of the community. You lose people, you lose good people, it impacts the quality of service and the safety of the community. Like I hear you talk about the box truck, the fire that was next, I saw the pictures of it. You have to call in other communities. Well, what if the other communities are busy with their own fires? What if they have a box truck on fire in their town and they can't send anybody?
so check this out, Tim. The deputy and I were the only 2 at a serious head-on motor vehicle accident because we had 2 ambulances at the hospital.
And the other one's
Westboro, and the other guys were at a fire alarm. Westboro was tied up. Marlboro ambulance was tied up. Shrewsbury ambulance was tied up. And all we kept getting from the dispatch is, I don't know where else to go. So there was just the 2 of us. Our ambulances had to clear the hospitals, one in Worcester and one in Marlboro, and get back, and we had to wait for them to get back. That's what's happening.
And I mean, that's just reality.
Cancel again.
So, it's not.
No, everyone's helping them. You guys were awesome.
I mean, and I'll just say, we'll,
It's just, that's what happens. And God forbid if that's somebody that you know, or you, like,
Because it is somebody. I mean,
Right,
no
it
matter
is.
who's like, somebody's
well, it's your
impacted by
neighbor.
that. Yeah.
I mean, whoever it is, it's your neighbor. And if you don't care for
And-
your
and-
neighbors, it's,
The people we have working for us, and I'm not saying this, just, they are amazing. The stuff they do and the stuff that they will put themselves through. But at a point, you just you're done. It's a tough enough job, but you're done.
I think that everybody there said just tremendous, but
Well, I hired most of them, so.
I hired the last.
But I think that citizens' biggest concern is always response time.
Yes.
Whether it's EMS or fire, it's how quickly are you gonna help me when I'm in trouble? And, and I think that this will resonate.
Yeah, one of the things we have to do for the SAFER grant is show those things. So what's our current response time? What's our current shoot time? So shoot time is the time from the time we get towing to the time we get on the road. Then there's response time, which includes that plus travel time. And then there, right, so all these things we look at, we have to include all those. And there's certain standards, a certain benchmark that the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, sets for us. And when you start, and we're tracking all of our delays, and I can see all these delays, and they're all staff delay, which means we're tied up somewhere else, and we just can't get back. So and then when we have to bring companies in from Westboro, they come in, but they're coming from Westboro. You guys want to talk about this?
Yeah, all set on the safer stuff, or Janet?
If you apply for the SAFER grant and you get it, when will that happen?
So we're going to apply for the grant to be submitted on the 12th.
April 12th.
The earliest we'll hear is maybe July.
I think the earliest they said was July for rollouts.
Earliest, and that's only if you, so, and that's normally, it's based on need, right? So if you're the, oh my God, we're gonna collapse right now, so some big cities will lay off tons of people and then get a SAFER grant to hire those people back. Not that they would,
Oh, to artificially increase there.
just saying. Okay, so they may be further up the chain than we are. So we could get it in July, August, September, October, November, December.
So they don't distinguish in any way between the size of the departments, or you may be in competition with Boston?
And we're also, well, no. We are a combination department, meaning we have career people and call firefighters. So because we're a combination department, we follow under a different window than if we were all career. So all career people fall under a slightly different window, and they're looked at in a different, they have different requirements, slightly different qualifications, and they're awarded separately.
Again, kind of ask the question a different way. Let's say, this is great. Let's say you don't get the grant. What are we going to need to do? What's Plan B?
So Plan B is that $250,000 a year until we get to where we need to be. So
Is that reasonable? Should we be doing more than that? I mean, if you're sitting here and saying, right now, today, I need 8 more firefighters,
this is,
should we be slow?
you want me to
making
answer
this?
as a fire chief or as a human being or as a taxpayer?
I'm asking as, how do I
Yeah.
prioritize this with a new string program in K through 8?
Yeah.
I'm looking at it, because, we've got an idea of, we've got, there's the whole leg and how you fit everything into it. And this seems like a pretty critical need.
So,
And it probably falls above some other things that, do I weigh firefighters against more library hours? Do I weigh, or anything? And how do we do that kind of thing?
sure,
So,
as the deputy said, we'll take 8. We need more, but we'll take 8. Okay, so we need 8 people right now, but we also have to
I don't
be.
think Plan B should be, well, let's just add 2.
Well, I understand, but from a fire chief's point of view, if I come, we get denied. No, you're not getting the 8. And I come back to the board and I say, guys, I need 8. And the board says, we'll give you 2 this year, 2 next year, and 4 the year after that. Will you take that? My answer is yes, I'll take that. Not that I want that. I want 8. But you don't say, I've seen chiefs, George, I don't understand this, but I've seen this. They come in and say, I want 8 people. We'll give you 4 this year and 4 next year. Nope, I want 8 people right now. Okay, we can't take it.
I'm not saying that either, but again, as us recommending
8.
what we should be spending on, and we're adding people this year, not firefighters. Maybe we should be adding firefighters and not some of the ones we are adding. I don't know that, but the problem is, until you've got the needs out.
Right. And every department head's going to come in and tell you, I need this and I've been asking for this for 10 years. You're going to get that from every day. If you haven't gotten it, I'd be really surprised.
Yeah.
Because I know we all talk. We're all buddies. I understand that. And I understand that everyone from rec to health to police to fire all need people. We've all been asking. And it's tough as a board to say, okay, who gets that priority? And what I don't do is I don't throw the dead baby on the table. And what I mean,
Yeah.
but that's an important concept because I don't come in and say, if you don't, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
Right, but
Okay?
if you're
But I am
losing-
going to tell you honestly where we currently are.
If you're losing people
Yeah.
because of the workload, we don't want that fire to get worse. And so again, I'm just looking at it from the standpoint, and then again, I'm gonna come back to maybe we should be looking at a longer forward window than just what we're doing for the next fiscal year on this.
And that's something we can, we can offline work
Yeah.
on, some ideas on our end, and come
Okay.
forward with stuff later, yeah.
All right, I think, I don't wanna keep.
I'll talk about it all night. So
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
problem. I'll just sit here and yap. My wife will say, where were you? Oh, we're just talking.
Yeah,
Fire station. So I go from, what, frying pan into the fire? Is that how this goes? When Scott said, can you talk about these both tonight? Sure, I like pain, this will be fun. So, this is as close to the current iteration as I could put on here. We just looked at colors the other day, so I can't get you exactly, but this is looking from West Main, but we'll go over that a little bit further. So, how do we get where we are? Current station was built in 74, occupied in 75. At that time, there were 2 full-time firefighters during the day. That's all they did. Didn't offer ambulance service. There was no limit. There was limited, if any, sleeping facilities. There's some bed. The upstairs, you had been to the fire station. It's all cut up. Used to be one big wide room. Downstairs used to be one big area, right? Focus was on current space needs rather than future growth. And I have this letter here from Chief Pierce. And Chief Pierce said, this isn't the best location for a fire station, but we'll take it. I agree with him. He then says, we need to move because we can't fit our apparatus that we have where we are now. Well, how's that work out? Well, this was 1974. 7 pieces of apparatus. They had 4 engines, a rescue, water tanker, and a pickup truck. And they said, we were storing things outside, we didn't have enough room. This is today. 18 pieces of apparatus. Bigger, heavier, heck of a lot more expensive, and we're storing stuff outside. And in the garage out back. Now, what does that mean? Well, we have a forestry truck, right? It's brush season right now. Our forestry truck normally sits in our unheated garage outside. What's the temperature right now? Right? Can I put a wet truck outside in this temperature? I can't. The pump is going to freeze up. But I need that because the brush fires are hitting. There was like a ton of them. We didn't get hit today, but all around us we were class 4 today, right? Which is a high fire danger. So what do? I have to put something else outside. But I can't put the ambulances outside because the state restricts that. The ambulances have to stay inside. So what am I going to put outside? So it gets super complicated. So this is where we are. This is the number of apparatus we have now. This is what it looks like inside the fire station. To get from bay 3 to bay 4, where the tanker is over there, you have to either walk over top of that bumper or open the door and go outside and around. That's your 2 choices. This is the other big thing, guys. 60% of line of duty deaths are cancer. Wasn't always the case. Well, it probably was the case, but they just didn't know. So now they know that 60% of line of duty deaths are cancer. And I caught the change in color. And they say, these are the 5 things you need to do to reduce that. Thing 1 is you have to have a good policy to make sure people are wearing their breathing apparatus. We have that. We test our guys every year for fit. We flow test our equipment every year. We got a grant to buy all new breathing apparatus a couple of years ago. Great. Thing 2, make sure the guys clean up as soon as possible. We do that. We have stuff on scene for them to clean up. We make sure they shower when they got back. Thing 4, wash your gear immediately. All of our guys have 2 sets of gear. They come back, they can wash one set, have another set to go right out. Awesome. Thing 5, track all your exposures. Our software does that. Every time someone goes into a fire, they were exposed to this, that. I can run a query and tell you how many times Deputy Chief Aspesi was in a fire, what he was exposed to, and what we did to decon him. I can do all that. What's number 3? Build a fire station that's a clean, safe fire station. That is the clean design fire station. What's a clean design fire station? I'm not going to go over all these, okay? What's a clean design fire station? This is a clean design fire station. There's 3 zones. There's a hot zone, there's a warm zone, and a cold zone. Hot zone is where all the dirty stuff is, the fire trucks, the turnout gear. When I started as a full-time, when I started in 1978 as a volunteer firefighter, my stuff came to my house and came downstairs with me. When I started as a career firefighter in 86, my stuff went up to the bedroom and sat at the end of my bed, and all you did was swing around, put your boots on, pull your pants up, the big suspenders, yeah. Now, it doesn't leave the apparatus floor. The stuff stays in the apparatus floor. So this is our layout. This is our proposed layout. So the dirty area. You then have the transition, the warm area. That's where the gear is stored. That's where it's washed. That's where our decon area is. That's where some of the report rooms are, where the guys are coming in and still doing reports, so they still have some gear on potential. That's where all that is. Then the green area is the clean area. These are not only separated by physical barriers, they're also separated by design, by airflow, by pressurized areas. So this is a clean station. This is what all fire stations are being designed as now. That takes us to the next thing, the second floor. I'm going to skip through these just real quick. No, I don't want to do that. I'll come back to that. I apologize. I could take you to the second floor. I'll do that in a minute. So there's also mental issues. The second leading cause of death, suicide. Why? Well, I don't know. We did 3 codes the other day, and none of them came back. We did CPR on a 2-year-old, or we went to the same person that we've picked up 20 times who's a drug addict and gave him Narcan every time, and now this time he didn't make it, right? So there's all these mental things. So we need to design the station with that in mind. There's quiet rooms in this station. There's extra showers in this station so we don't have to wait. There's actually balconies in this station for the guys to get outside and say, okay, I can depress you. And I'll show you that as we go through. So where are we? Right now, we just finished schematic design. We're in design development. The design development means we've already laid out what we want everything to look like. We looked at our programs. Now we're looking at, okay, what color is the brick going to be? What's this going to be? What kind of heating system? And we're looking and we're making decisions. And we'll get to the number in a second. And I don't want to talk about some of the decisions we're making until we get to that end, because it's really critical you understand those decisions we're making. These are important dates to remember. So construction documents will go out sometime after May 30th. That's after design development's done. Deadline for the select board to place the project on the ballot is 9/24. It's a ballot. It's a debt excluded, so it's got to go to the ballot. We're looking at a special town meeting the first 2 weeks of October. So we have to schedule the special town meeting. I'm pushing for 10/7 because 7's my lucky number, and it's my birthday. So,
It's my wife's birthday also.
oh, special person. Is she left-handed?
That's actually why we did it.
She's not left-handed? Oh, dang, I'm gonna say even better. Okay, so these are very important dates. The select board has, and it's a 4/5 vote by the select board. All we want from the select board is for them to actually let the people make their decision. Move it forward, let the people, if the people say no, the people say no. If the people say yes, the people say yes. So we want that to move it onto the ballot, and the ballot is going to be in conjunction with the national election. So it won't be a standalone. So when you go out to vote for president, you also have the ability to vote on the fire station. So that's all. Those are 3 very important dates to keep in mind. So this is our design. This is the site design. It's had many iterations, many changes. This is our current one. Parking's in back for the firefighters. Parking for the firefighters and the general public is separated for a specific reason, because we don't want to bring the fire trucks out or have returning firefighters coming back from calls coming in the same parking lot as people coming in for permits or for meetings or for whatever. So we separate those. Front and back aprons are heated to 25 feet out. Why? To melt the snow, to make snow removal easier. Right? There's generators here. There's parking. We have state law requires us to wire 11 parking spots for EV chargers. Doesn't mean we have to put in 11 chargers. We have to have 11 parking lots based on the number of spaces we have. We have to have 11 parking spaces for EV chargers. What's the big concern now is the wall. right? We didn't have a wall when we came out with the feasibility study back in 2018, 2019. Why do we have it now? Well, feasibility study was just that. It was a feasibility study based on the GIS data. There was never a formal survey done. This had a formal survey done, had the programmatic needs more fleshed out, ends up that other station wouldn't have fit. We need to put a wall there. So we looked at 3 different wall designs. This is the straight wall design. Goes back about 2 feet over the course of the whole wall. It goes straight up about 30 feet at one spot in the corner. So if you look at the corner, looking at this, the lower left corner, that goes up to 30 feet. Straight wall all the way around in this design.
Chief, if I-
Please jump in, buddy.
And it's important to know that it's not a 30-foot wall
Only in the
circumference.
corner.
It's 30 feet, and then it dramatically drops down towards the ends.
And most of it's behind the fire station. This is the second one. This is a batter wall. So a batter wall is one that kind of leans back further. Pretty simple. Instead of it going up, it goes a little bit further back. So it goes back 17 feet as opposed to going back 2 feet, right? And it's about the same height. And these over on the right side here, you can see the angle that wall would be. And if I'm going too fast, yep.
Are these walls necessary because of the topography of the site?
Correct, Janice. Because of how rapidly that hill goes up, the engineers have looked, there is no way to grade that in such a way that we can build there without putting a wall up. It just can't be done.
Where's bedrock? How many feet from the surface?
Great question. Boring happens on next Thursday. So
You're doing them this late?
boring's happening on Thursday. Well, it's not really late because.
Yes, it is.
Well, no, because we're not talking special town meeting until October.
No, but it's a very important
Oh, it is.
design consideration.
Certainly is. So all the boring is happening it was supposed to happen 2 weeks ago. It got delayed because their schedule and because of weather. We had some really crappy weather, so it got delayed. DPW had to make room for them to get their machines in there, so they had to cut down some trees and make some paths. So they're going to go in there and they're do the borings on Thursday. There's also
You
one.
said because of the weather?
Oh yeah, they wouldn't drill in the rain.
Well, what kind of, I've monitored a lot of borings with the driving rain.
I'm just telling you.
So, and Janice, I'm gonna, this full wood, or knock on wood.
Yeah.
Is where the hillside drill is, where that wall is, which we don't wanna talk about that wall, this is not what that wall's gonna look like. We could not find any blasting permits for that property.
It doesn't look like they didn't blast there at
Would not
all.
expect to find any.
So we don't expect to
But
find
that's
stuff.
why your boring should be
Yes.
done early.
I don't disagree.
But let's hope for the best, right?
So this is the batter wall, which again, I said,
I'm not asking who your engineer is.
our engineer is Par Engineering. I'll tell you who they are. It's okay. So this is the batter wall, which I said steps back a little bit further. And then this is the batter terrace wall. So some important things. This is the wall that's built into the base price, into the lowest price. This wall is an additional $269,000 over the base price. This wall, we don't have a price for yet because this is when we said, well, can we do this, which is a combination terrace and batter? So batter, one terrace, and then batter. So it kind of breaks it up, right? This wall, which is 2 terrace walls, oh, take a guess how much this costs over the base. $616,000 over base. Okay? So what we did as the fire station building committee, we said, you know what? This wall is not an option. $616,000, we cannot justify it. This wall, and this wall, we'll look at. This wall, we will not. It's just too darn expensive. Plus, there's been a lot of talk you guys have heard about putting parking behind the station, up in that area up there. The further back this terrace wall goes, this one goes 45 feet deep. The further back it goes, the more chance that we have limited parking or access to parking up behind it. Because I talked about, Master Plan Implementation Committee has talked about maybe at a different project doing parking up there for downtown because there's no parking available and all that. So that's just one of the things.
So what does each wall buy you, as opposed to
Aesthetics.
just aesthetics?
Just aesthetics. Now, we looked at the walls yesterday and the different materials, and I encourage you to watch the video we had yesterday, I did push up the handout today, and I linked it, I think. If not, I'll do it tomorrow. And you can actually see different designs of walls. So there's a really ugly wall, then there's one that's called a pebble wall, then there's one that's called a ledger wall, and some can be dyed and some can't. So that's all going to build into what that window of price is, depending on what we do, right?
Is there a factor in maintenance or structural integrity or?
There is. So, another important thing, no matter what wall we do, you'll notice the two side walls never change. They're always going to be a straight wall because of the amount of what they have to hold back and the way it's done. So the straight walls require geogrid. Geogrid is a material that about every 5 feet, it goes back and it helps anchor that wall. So you then backfill on top of it, and then you do another, and then another, right? The batter wall and the terrace walls do not require geogrid. The side walls will still require it, but the back walls won't. So that's part of design. But the further back you go, the higher you go, the more material you're going to need, the more labor involved, the more dirt you need to move, right? So that's all involved in the additional cost. Just a real quick look at the landscape. Just wanted to show you a couple things. We're looking at putting some lighted bollards out there and trees. Now, we can't put trees. One of the requirements, one of the things we're looking to get a variance for is we need streetscape trees. Is that what they're called? Streetscape? Something to that effect. Trees on the street. We can't do that. Why? Because I need to be able to see when I'm pulling out with a fire truck responding to a building fire. But what we did is we put trees back closer to the building, on the front of the building, but back closer off the edge of the road. We have already talked to the owners of Hillside Grill. We want to work on their property and our property together and level out that one corner that it looks really yucky there. And if you're right next to their property, we want to clean that out. And they said, sure, not a problem. Come on in. I said, well, there's an old wall there. He said, there's an old wall there? I said, yeah. I said, are you sure? Yeah. Did you guys put it there? No. Went over and looked. Yeah, there's an old wall there. It's not holding anything back. So
And by
we're
doing that too, we don't have to bring our wall all the
into
way
their
to the
wall.
street.
Right. It saves us some money. So the two big things I wanted to point out here are the one thing is you can see the second picture down from the right is a picture of the 9/11 memorial that's currently in town. Anybody know where the 9/11 memorial in town is? Drive by, you walk up to it. Anybody ever do it? I didn't think so, right? It's corner of Church Street and Pleasant Street.
Yeah.
Many people don't know it's there. Okay? It was a project, it was a scout project. It was an Eagle Scout project.
There.
You were there. Awesome project. When we started talking about this fire station, a guy said, hey, there's that 9/11. Why don't we move that memorial where people can actually see it? What a concept. The town owns it. It was donated to us. I said, we're not going to do that until we talk to the scouts. Not going to happen. Tom Reardon, I just got an email from him today, spoke with the Eagle Scout that did it, and he said, I'm 100% for it. But could you please talk to the scout leader and see if he's okay? So I'm waiting to hear back from the scout leader. But the Eagle Scout that did it said, go for it. It makes perfect sense. So this is the first floor design. Again, you've already seen part of this. The orange area is the operations area. The blue area is the public area and the EOC. So there's a lobby. We have a hand tub. I don't know how you guys have ever seen our antique hand tub. It's one of the original fire trucks that Northborough ever had. It's an old pump. Okay, that's going to go inside so it can be displayed. Instead of sitting out in the garage where there's no balance of temperature and it's decaying, we want to put it inside. The training room / EOC is on the right. Right now, the Emergency Operations Center is in the police station. This will be a modern emergency operations center. It'll be wired in such a way that we can just bring our phones in and plug them in. It'll have all that. So when we do have to activate our emergency operations center, it's right there. It's
Can I just- Does everybody understand what an emergency operations center is, EOC? Okay.
Who's going to tell them?
Well, I mean, it's the hub of government during a disaster.
It certainly
That's
is.
all government.
That's where
going out of
everything
that
runs
room
through.
During a disaster.
Which is another reason people say, well, why do fire stations need to be built out of brick and not wood? Because they need to stay standing. When everything else falls down, it's really important that we stay standing.
The Three Little Pigs is a story we hear when we're really little. We ought to know that.
Second floor. Second floor was designed on, this is important to understand. Our architects came to us and they said, where do you see yourselves in 40, 45, 50 years? I went, oh my God, I don't know where we're going to see ourselves in 4 years. You're going to make me think about that? What's our staffing going to be in 40 years? What are you going to need for equipment in 40 years? What are you going to need, for showers in 40 years? So we had to stop and think, what are we going to need for personnel? Are we, so we said the max we could see in personnel maybe would be 14 people. This is the max. This is 40 years out. Who knows what's going to happen? things have changed since I've been in the fire service drastically, right? But what we need right now is we need separate bedrooms because we have no gender separation. When one guy gets sick, everyone gets sick because 5 guys share 2 bedrooms. So we put 7 dorms in. So each person can have their own, but if we do expand, each dorm has 2 bedrooms, has 2 beds. So we can house up to 14 people. So we were thinking of, how can we build this without, in 6 years and 8 years, coming back and renovating it? We don't want to do that because it's going to cost twice as much when you go to renovate it than it costs to build it, right? So there's 7 bedrooms, there's 3 showers, there's 2 regular bathrooms. So why are there 3 showers and 2 regular bathrooms? Because when 5 guys get up or five firefighters get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to a call, you know what the first thing they have to do is?
Go to the bathroom.
You have to go pee, right? So we wanted them to not have to wait. So that's why there's bathrooms. That's why there's actually extra bathrooms.
So, the other benefit to the double dorms, is we run 5, hopefully be running 7, but, you know, when you talk about those surge, like George was saying about you gotta prepare for the
staff up.
surge, if we have a storm coming, you know, we need to up our staffing. So those dorms may be filled, you know, next winter, you know, or, you know, whenever. So it gives us an opportunity, and I can tell you from another department locally of a person I know, they built it for what they needed. Then last year they had they had massive snowstorm, and they had to go get mattresses and put them in the training room and in the office, and that's where the extra people slept. So when you get to be foresighted just to save some money, in the long run, really, you're not investing the money appropriately.
Great example is during COVID, we had an operational plan if we started having issues of 12-hour shifts, 12 on, 12 off. Right? So you'd have 10 guys there and then 10 guys there. I could only sleep
Please.
5. Here, I could double staff if need be.
Thank you.
Also here, we have 2 terraces. One's a green roof and one is a roof that we can go out and actually have a barbecue out there and get outside, that type of stuff. So it's a red brick building because it complements what's downtown now. It has the arches because that kind of gives you that old fire station look, but it's not as expensive as doing 6 arches, which is very expensive and is actually very busy. We looked at a design with 6 arches. It was too much. It was just way too much. It has a training tower / hose tower. Well, why do we need a training tower, hose tower? Training tower allows us to train in deploying hose up and down stairs, which, believe it or not, is a very unique skill and it's hard to learn because you have to stretch your hose up the stairs to come back down the stairs, or else you're trying to drag loaded hose up the stairs, right? It's complicated. And taking patients up and down the stairs. We can do that in full gear. We can also hang our hose. Well, you don't need to dry modern hose. Really? Okay. They'll tell you that. And then when you go on your site, you know what it says? Dry your hose before you put it away. Okay. Or put wet hose in a hose bed and leave it in there for 6 months and see what it smells like. Okay, so we do dry hose, we do dry tarps, and it's a training tower. Plus, we put a clock on it. So we love that. The main entrance has a big arch on it to mirror the other arches, and it comes out about 4 feet so people can get out of the weather. This is a bird's eye view from the northeast. What are those things on top? Those are called roof monitors. They bring in natural light to the apparatus floor so we don't have to have our lights on all the time. Which is, if we had a regular roof, we'd have to have our lights on all the time. Let's make it a little bit green and try and save money. What else does it do? It gives us a platform for PV. That's south facing. We can, when we build the station, it has to be built to accept photovoltaic. Perfect place for them right on top of there. Ashland Fire, they just occupied their building. They have roof monitors. They just put PV up there. So it's a great. You can see from here, they got 2 pergolas over top of the 2 outside areas. That was based on a request from Design Review. They said, you're going to stick guys out there and not cover them? Are you crazy? So, good point. So we put something out there to cover them. This is your northeast view. This is your northwest view. And I want you to look at this one because you can see that sign there. That sign, we're proposing an electronic sign. Why? Now, there's a ban on electronic signs downtown. You guys know that, right? Why do we want to put electronic sign? Well, we have the lion sign. You guys know how effective that sign is, right? Not very. And it's been hacked before. Or we have that big sign that DPW drags around, fires up, and shows stuff. Okay? People watching are going to be, well, why does he keep doing that? So we're going for a variance to put an electronic sign. So we can say, school's canceled. Or we can say, this is our fire safety message. Or we can say, town meeting's next week. Or we can say, and it's right there in the center of town where everybody drives by. Okay? Here's the 9/11 memorial. I want to move that See where those people are standing? That's where we'll put it. And we'll put a flagpole there, so when everyone comes by the station, we'll walk right past it. And there'll be a bench there. So they can come in and sit down, have a few moments. When we do our 9/11 ceremony now, we have no place to do it. We do it in front of the station. Now we'll have a place to do it. Okay? So this is what we're proposing moving. The monument's a little dirty. That doesn't mean we can't try and get it cleaned up and get it moved. It may be moving some of the rocks. We're not sure what we're going to do with that. This is a sign we're looking at. We wanted to give you a perspective. This is a guy standing next to the sign we're looking at. Okay, it mirrors the design of the station with the brick. West elevation, southwest elevation. Why is the south elevation ugly compared to the other elevation? Because it's facing the wall. Why are we going to put money into something you're not going to see? Doesn't make sense. Okay. Southeast elevation, east elevation. Guys, I'm not going to go over all of this. You've been here long enough. This is all the schematic designs, how we get there. But the important thing to understand is there's soft cost and hard cost when you're talking about a building. Hard cost is what it costs to build the building. Soft cost is what it costs to put stuff in the building. Furniture, radios, lights, all that stuff, right? So this is just an important thing. I'm not going to go over it all, but our owner's project manager went through and said, comparatively speaking, the price that we came up with for the building in 2019 and the price that we're looking at now, are they with escalation? Does that make sense? They actually said, yeah, it's comparable. So the price that came up for that first building we looked at and the price that we're looking at now with the escalation, yeah, it makes sense. We've been facing escalations normally 4% a year. Over COVID, 15, 20, 30, it just depends on what the product is. So where does that take us? Oh my God, it takes us to here. Now, please understand, the cost estimate at the top is your hard cost. That's your building, $30.9 million. Stuff down below is and you notice that there's a range there, right? Because there's extra things we can't pick or not pick. Furnishings, fees and expenses, contingency is really big. And the reason it is because the guy that does the cost estimation for this, he doesn't know everything because we're speculating on some things. We don't know if we're going to do this. We don't know if we're going to do that because we're just in schematic design. So he has to estimate high as opposed to low. That's why we have this wide range. I made some phone calls today, talked and did some research today. So this works out to a little over $1,000 a square foot. Charlton, building a substation, $1,387 a square foot. Westbrook, building a station, $41 million for their station. We're right in line with what these other stations are coming up with. So this is the important slide I wanted to talk about. I wanted to get to this slide. These are the alternates. So you know you have that, and I know it's hard to read, but this is 43 to 49. How do we get that? Here. The green alternatives can increase us by $129,000 if we put 11 EV charging stations. It can increase us by $577 if we put PV on those roofs. Can increase it another $32,000 if we do a green roof in the front, not just in the back. Okay. Energy code upgrades. We may not have a choice over these because the new energy code is causing us all kinds of heartache. Triple glazed windows. We have to have those. Guess what? We have to. We don't have a choice in order to meet it. So that's an increase of $337 over the base. Triple glazed windows if we put those in, we have to upgrade the curtain walls, $444,000, right? And then do we want to put closed cell insulation in there? Well, it really depends. Are we going to save money over the course of this building by putting closed cell or not? We don't know. Material options. If we go with asphalt shingles over standing seam, we can save $307,000. However, we're going to have to replace those after 20 years, 25, 30 years. And if we have PV, then what do we have to do, right? Overhead garage doors. So you've heard a lot of talk. I went to bifold doors. I've been pushing bifold doors. The four-fold ones, not bifold, they open this way instead of this way. They open in about 2.5 seconds as opposed to, right? They don't get hit by trucks on the way out. They don't come down accidentally on top of trucks. Maintenance is a lot less, and they're cheaper to install by about $170,000. Aluminum composite instead of cement, instead of some boards that we're talking about, that green over top of the cementatious boards and all that, could save us $49,000. So these are all things that we're looking at. There's two things that have X's on them, and there's a reason for that. Thing number one is the $612,000 for the terraced wall, Fire Station Building Committee said, we are not doing that. That is too much money for that terrace wall for it to look. Maybe the batter wall, not the terrace wall. That's why you see the batter wall there at $297. HVAC, very important, guys, look at this. If we use a air source variable refrigerant flow, blah, 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 we can save $292,000. You know what the one next to it is? Geothermal? Add 2.26 million to the bottom line for geothermal. Our next meeting, we have the engineers coming in telling us what the value is for that. So they may say, yes, it's going to cost you 2.26 million, but you're going to save 5 million over the life of this building. Or they may say, it's going to cost 2.26 million and it's going to cost 2.26 million, and that's what it's going to cost. We don't know. So we're going to find out at the next meeting when the engineers come in. The last thing I really want to point out to you, and that's a range of 700,000 to 900, and that's got an X across it. I wanted to run conduit up to the water tower out back and put our antennas up there, because that gets us a clear line of sight from there to the PD, and we can put microwave antennas, which improves our communication and police communication, not just there, but all around the area. Not for $900,000, I'm not doing that.
I've done that, and thing I never thought of is there was a particular, about a week to a week and a half, where as the sun changes position, et cetera, you have no microwave.
Yep.
And we found that it was great, and then spring came around.
And you had crap.
Oh,
Yep.
So, I mean, and I'm thinking about where they're located and morning and night,
Yep.
and the sun goes,
That very well could be a problem.
Yeah.
So what we did is we said, we're not doing this.
Right.
We're going to talk to a radio company and see what are other options we can do to improve it. And he said, there's actually options you can do maybe that don't involve conduit at all. Awesome.
Okay.
Right, so we've already scratched 900 and 612 from that top line. I put this up here, and I was criticized for putting this up here because, oh, you're trying to intimidate people. No, I'm not. I'm the fire chief, and if I don't tell you what's going to happen, shame on me. These prices are only good until the end of 2024. If we don't, and if the town chooses not to, that's fine. I completely understand that. But shame on me if I don't tell you, that's what you're looking at for escalation, 7 to 10%.
Two questions about the heated apron.
Yeah,
One, what is the initial cost? Because I didn't see it on there.
we don't have that yet.
Okay, and then the other thing, does it impact long-term care of the asphalt? Like, does it, when you're repaving, does it?
From what I've been told, it does not. And the reason we didn't do the whole side, so someone said, well, just do the whole thing and melt it off. No, because that will increase the water flow down on Route 20, which will freeze on Route 20, and the state will be really angry with us. Which is if we do 25 feet, that water will be caught in the snow in front of there as it melts, and then be pushed away by
And is that the area right where the trucks are coming in and out of the bays?
It's where so what happens is right now, if we don't shovel it constantly, we get a hump. So now these trucks are going boom, 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 boom every time. So if we can keep that flat, it's better for the trucks, less maintenance, keeps it cleaner, and it actually makes snow removal easier for DPW.
And the majority, if not all, of that heated apron is concrete. So it's not.
Not asphalt, it's
Not asphalt.
okay.
That section.
Okay. That's
And we're
good.
also looking at putting radiant floor heating in the station. Well, why are you doing that? Because I don't want to heat up there, I want to heat where we are. But we got to talk to the engineers, and they may say, well, that's not an efficient way to do it. This is more efficient. Okay, if that's more efficient and it's cheaper, then that's what we'll do. Or if this is better, that's what we'll do. So, but a lot of places, more and more departments are going with the heated floors. So it works out well. So this is a big slide. You needed to see that. This site, nb-firestation.org, takes you to our webpage that you can look at every presentation. So every iteration of the station we've done, you can click on that. You can click on it to see the minutes. You can go to all the videos, all the fire station meetings that we've done. Everything's off of there. But the most important thing on that site is a link to the frequently asked questions, which the guy behind me coordinates. We're up somewhere over 45 to 50 frequently asked questions. And he updates them probably every other week. So we get new questions, someone sends us an email and says, I have this question, we answer the question, and we put it up there, because if he had the question, you know what? 10 other people have the same darn question. So we try to put it up there, we try and keep it updated, and that's our fire station.
Thank you, Chief.
I can't talk anymore.
Well done.
Questions? Right. So I'm going to be doing a presentation at town meeting this year. We're going to have some stuff at town meeting. We just want people to know about it. And all we ask is that if you have questions, if you want to know, come to the fire station, we'll take you through. If you have, whatever, we're here for you guys. But, we didn't build in a lot of whistles and bells and fancy stuff. We didn't put in wants, we put in needs. And that's how we are where we are. So I appreciate your time, everybody. And if you have any questions, especially with the budget later on, just email me, let me know. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Deb.
She's going to say, I know you talked the whole time.
I haven't seen him in my kitchen. I have a very sensitive smoke alarm. And if I don't turn the fan on, all I have to do is cook bacon in there in the driveway.
They're calling. They're visiting.
They're very familiar with me.
All right, next item on the agenda would be if we need to discuss any of the committee recommendations. Do you know?
We have not approved the minutes from the last two. We skipped the first.
Yeah,
We're
you
doing
wanted,
the-
let's talk about that real quick then. The March 7th minutes were delivered electronically earlier today. The 14th were hot on the heels. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to review them sufficiently.
I was here early, did you, Bob?
Do those people who work for a living have difficulty receiving things and absorbing them on the afternoon of the meeting?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
tight, right?
Yes.
I mean, do you eat dinner or do you?
Right, that's why I'm saying, I'm asking that question, if enough of us have had a chance to do that.
We could
If
table
not,
these till the next
We can
meeting?
table them to the next meeting. And so, I know Janice, you need some time on that. I imagine George is in the same boat, so.
Table them, okay.
Table them the next bit. Now, we've got both of them here in the packet. I think we have both of them electronically as well now.
We do now.
Okay,
Angie sent
great.
the other one.
Perfect.
But
Then
I think
let's-
we're already here, some of us.
Yeah, table it to next meeting. That's good there. Discussion regarding committee recommendations.
Yeah, I think it might be a little bit premature to vote the recommendations. We don't have a
Right.
draft report in front of us. I think as a basis with the articles, I think we'll finalize the financial plannings report, and then we can copy the article information over
Right
to
into
to
that
the
draft,
operations
and then-
report, on a practical basis.
So that, toward that end, if we look at the schedule, so April 4th, we'd be able to, that's when we'd be taking our votes?
I believe so. That would be
That should be fine.
within prior years'
Yeah,
calendars.
that should be fine there. George, we're going to table the minutes and give people more time to review those.
All right.
Okay, so, do we need to look over the current list? Or did you want to do the budget update next?
Yeah, so I understand, I don't know if everyone on this committee received in terms of updates between last week and this week, I don't know how many people received Tim's email about the siding and the article for the siding and the
Not
DPW
yet.
truck.
We heard from Tim a little bit earlier today, so that was probably worthwhile to talk a little bit
Yeah,
about
and when he comes
that.
back,
So
maybe
when he comes back,
he'll
let's
wanna
talk the warrant
talk about
articles.
that,
Yeah.
But in terms of like the budget update, last week, I didn't have much new information between the select board's budget update and your meeting last week. We've since refined some of the numbers just a little bit, and that's the model that we're looking at here in your packet. I think unless something egregious shows up, these are the numbers that are gonna go forward in the budget presentation on Monday to the select board. Because if there's some kind of critical error,
And
which I hope
Jason,
there's not, but.
And in terms of significant changes to what's been
Well,
presented, anything you want to
the,
highlight to us?
I would just say this, the numbers did go down slightly from what was presented before, so a tax impact calculation here is gone, let me just look at my numbers now, but it's down below 7%, down to, 6.88%, or it's $614 increase on the single-family home.
Okay, 6.88 and
6.88% and $614.
$614. Thank you. Thanks, sir. So still within those, kind of that high and low point?
Kind of
we
within
talked, and as we've looked
those
at things-
goalposts, you know, that.
And that's providing for all of the staff requests from all of the departments?
Correct. Those are there is one slide in that presentation that was handed out in that presentation, and those are included in these numbers.
Yeah, just, that was just page 13 from this prior budget packet that outlines the total for all the new positions, and the total on that was on the order of $460,000.
Yes.
Including health
Including a projection for health insurance.
Oh, yeah, and it
That may or
includes the
may,
health
that may or
insurance.
may not be realized. It's just that's how we budget for new employees. We include the cost of a family plan typically.
That makes sense. Excellent. And so this updated table that we didn't get electronically but was available, this summarizes everything for what'll go into the warrant, breaks out those individual elements, and then has the nice little pie charts that'll go into it. Anything else to highlight on that? So it's coming into focus, right? This is the whole point of this.
Right.
Period.
I think the point of the select board's presentation was to kind of set up, as we work through these, the numbers were gonna get refined, but if the department requests were 0, we'd still be within a certain percentage, and if all of the department requests were honored, and as they were submitted, it would have been about an 11% increase. So we've pushed through this process, and, this is where we're coming out at 6.88.
Right, and just to repeat those goalpost numbers, right? It was
Yeah.
5.2 if nothing
If no town departmental requests were
came through, so it was just like, almost like fix the budget, almost like complete fixed services. I should say.
level funded,
Yeah,
not level services, level funded.
level funded would be 5.2.
Yeah.
With all the requests, we would have been at 8.4%. We're coming in now at 6.88%.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. Any questions on the budget update?
I just have one quick
Yeah,
one.
Bob.
State aid, we know those numbers yet, or?
Yeah, I mean, these use the governor's numbers.
Okay.
Typically, what would happen with state aid, the mechanics of that, if we end up getting a higher number, which we likely will throughout the process.
So you think we will? Okay.
What that will do is, it'll be, when we set the tax rate, it'll suppress the taxes, in that. So we budget conservatively, starting with the governor's numbers, and,
The 7.6, whatever it was.
yeah, it's a 1.46% increase over the prior year.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Then let's talk warrant articles next. We are,
I'm gonna try to give you a
Close together.
10,000-foot view,
Yeah.
and then I'll try to go quick, 'cause Dorothy certainly spoke for a while, rightly so. So you have this in your packet that lists out the table of contents. Just so you know, 66 articles. This is the document that went to town council Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. And the board is set to sign this on the 25th. So I can take you through some of these. I mean, obviously just went through 4. These glasses, this is very unfortunate for me. There are 2 prior year bills. If you go to Article 3 on this particular index, so there's 2 prior year bills. One is from the Veterans Service District, which is made up of 4 communities, including Northborough, Southborough, Grafton, Westborough.
Yeah.
So it was a district formed a while back to provide a veterans district, so we can administer 115 benefits and other benefits. So Grafton is the host community, and I guess the last quarter, they didn't true up in time for us. We closed the books, and we didn't get an invoice.
$666.10.
660. So for full disclosure, we have to go to town meeting, get approval to pay that bill. I think there's a ZBA or a planning board.
There's some planning board advertising invoices that didn't get paid as well, so I think those total $813.
So we'll deal with that in that article. And what'd you tell me? It was 4/5 or 3/5?
It's a 4/5 majority required for that.
Then the town budget. George had asked some questions about water and sewer rates, which I have more information in terms of the average. So I'll just cover that real quick if I could. These rates go out based on the budget that may get approved, but we have a separate firm that analyzes the rate and what it should be. So basically, they're looking at, for the sewer department will be about a 4% increase. So that'll equate to $235.28 a quarter. It's based on per cubic feet of water. And then that's the sewer flow, and then 5% for water. And water, we're an MWRA community, so they really control the fee. We don't manufacture or put water out of wells. We buy it from someplace else. You guys know that piece. So I just covered that in terms of the cost. For the family, that's $104.78 a quarter for that 5% increase. Now, those rates haven't been run through. Those are our internal estimates. Once the consulting firm does run the numbers based on the budget, those numbers could go up or down a little bit, but we're pretty close.
Yeah.
Scott's been pretty accurate on those. So that was 5. 6, 7, and 8 are all school department. And I think you've had them in, and they've talked about increase in staff and what they need to do with school psychologists and nursing and all that kind of stuff, and budgetary increase that they're faced with. And then stabilization account, it has to be voted and approved by town meeting.
Annually.
That's number 9. Assabet's number 8. Revolving funds, these are all your limits that you set every year.
Housekeeping.
Say again?
Housekeeping.
It's generally
yes, thank you.
housekeeping, and we've confirmed with all the departments that have revolving funds in this article, and the limits are gonna remain the same as the prior year. So no surprises.
Some limits are governed by state law too, right? You can't go over some. They
Well,
might not be at their max, but
Municipal modernization removed a lot of the limits to revolving funds, so we can set those locally.
good.
But they're just, we set them based on what we reasonably think would be a high watermark for any one of those funds.
all right. And then 11 is your Appropriation Committee Reserve Fund, 175
Yes.
for the number?
Yep.
Just a quick note on that, you approved the $5,000 number for architectural services, which I'll talk about how that relates to another article in a minute, but thank you for that again. If we didn't thank you for the 5,000, we do have an estimate for the police station moving forward, and we have a solution for that as well, which I probably sent you guys something on that today.
You did.
But we'll cover that in a second. For West Main, just another adoption, to use those rental funds to fund that building and stay within that account to do that. Stabilization fund contribution, 200,000.
Yes.
Senior tax relief, when we create this budget, I don't want to go too deep on this because you did a good job. We look at revenue, state aid, local receipts, property tax. We look at income as it relates to income of, collectively what the community files for local income tax at the state. We compare that to our sister communities and then check that against their tax liability for local taxes. And we covered that a little bit at one meeting early on. So we're very cognizant that there are people that are very well off and there are some people that are not well off. So with this article, we're trying to take advantage of what the state allows for exemptions for elderly, blind, veteran, whatever they may be. We want to adopt, help the people in the most need to offset. If it is $613 that we're asking for addition, we want to help those folks as much as possible. So that's why that's there. You want to talk about those two?
Yeah, I'll just share that, the mandate was kind of given to the finance department to research all of the options available. And they're not as straightforward as you might think. There's not a, one master list of options available. So, as it went through last year, we researched these options, and the only one that we've felt comfortable moving forward with was increasing some of the limits around tax deferrals, where we increased where it's basically for qualifying seniors, it would be like a reverse mortgage, so to speak, where taxes could be deferred up to a certain amount on the value of their house. It wasn't a frequently used program. It's still not very frequently used, but we did reduce the interest rate. So the interest rate that we would charge, instead of somebody not paying their taxes on time and incurring interest charges, which are at 14% on a statutory basis, this would limit, the deferral would be limited to 4%. So somebody would be able to not pay their taxes, but they'd be accruing a 4% interest rate, similar to a reverse mortgage. One of the other options that was available to us was we had the ability to increase some of the criteria or loosen some of the criteria that had been adopted locally by the select board around the senior work-off program. So we increased the amount that people could work under that program. There's some additional options that were available under that would require town meeting vote, and those are being included in the article this year to see if town meeting will allow us to adopt those options. And then lastly, there's what's called a doubling of exemptions law. And it's not as straightforward as that, but there's some provisions that would allow us to double the exemptions that are offered to elderly, veterans, blind, and infirmed people that currently are administered by the assessor's office. And by way of an estimate of the value for that, currently within our abatements that we grant every year, the exemptions and abatements come from the same account. It's part of the town's budget. It's frequently called overlay, sometimes called provision for abatements and exemptions. And within that amount that we abate out every year are the annual exemptions that are routine and they come forward every year. It's about $100,000. And the doubling statute, so if we adopted that, the worst case scenario would be another $100,000 on top of the amount that we raised. Within this town budget, we've estimated that a high amount for overlay, so that's included in that tax increase. So it's provided for within the budget.
So if they were to pass, you're covered inside the operating budget to cover those additional exemptions if they're granted. Because of course, people have to be income eligible or age eligible to get them. Thank you. So moving on, 15, I covered this last time. I don't know if you want me to do this in detail again. But City of Marlborough, all of our wastewater goes there. Since 2010, we have not had an IMA. So we're trying to negotiate with the mayor. I've had 2 meetings with him. I do a lot of texting and emailing with the mayor as well. Different change in leadership, change in style. I think we're close to getting a settlement. He knows that the court case for the special master that was assigned by the court has given a number, and we're fine with the number. We're not fine with the interest that they've kind of assigned to those years, because the interest is arbitrary. The rate was arbitrary. That's what we were fighting for the past 14 years, and now we think the interest is arbitrary. But the mayor understands that. He's trying to work through it and not be as litigious as other folks in the past. So we're closer, and I told him I was putting this on because a settlement needs to be voted by a town meeting so we can take it out of the right fund and not hit the general fund. If there's a judgment against us, then I think we could just go right to the fund of the wastewater treatment facility reserves. The good thing this community's done is they've increased the rate every year in anticipation of this happening. So we have the money to make the payment in reserves. So there's nothing to be afraid of in terms of an off-the-cliff jump in which we have to pay and have everybody pay immediately. They've been incrementally increasing. The same concept of the fire department for the grant.
Right.
You know, you're raising it as if you would pay it, and we'll just wait. So I think there's a lot of positivity around
You think you're going to
this.
get to the agreed-upon number in time?
Say that one more time.
Do you think you're going to get to an agreed-upon settlement number in time? So that it's still kind of floating?
I'm hopeful. We have a status conference in court on the 27th, and The mayor knows that, I know it, we're gonna see if we can work it out on the courthouse steps ahead of time while
Okay.
walking out, so we're looking forward to it. I will tell you that, there are people that I talk to about this, we've been paying about $40,000 a year in litigation costs for legal fees. It's a heck of a lot cheaper to pay that 40 grand, but we're a good neighbor, right? We want to make this right, we want a long-term IMA, we wanna pay our fair share. But at the end of the day, they can't shut us off.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't wanna tell anybody we're holding all the cards here, but we really are. We wanna make it right, we have the money to pay you. Let's move forward and do a long-term IMA. Or we can just keep, like we have been since 2010, litigate this and pay $40,000 a year, a heck of a lot cheaper. But that's not the right thing to do, but people have intimated that to me, let's just spend that and never look back. But it's just not the right thing to do. So I bring it up kind of tongue in cheek, but, at the end of the day, we have an agreement with the EPA to have flow going to Marlboro's treatment facility. So it's in their best interest, and it's obviously in our best interest.
Yeah.
So that's the long and short of that. Do you want me to run through all the CIP or just the ones that are kind of changing as we speak? 'Cause you know these.
Just the changes.
All right. So the police department, you allocated 70,000, or the community allocated 70,000 for painting last year. When they went to go do this painting job, they realized a lot of rotted wood on this wood building. And so we came up with a bright idea, let's not paint rotted wood. And so we said, what can we do to preserve the envelope of the building and keep it weather tight for 15, 17, 20 years? So facilities group and I agreed that, doing siding would be the best move, vinyl siding. And then we thought, well, let's do 130,000 and make it 200,000. So combining the 70 and the 130, make it 200. And then we had another thought, as we communicated through this process, and I know it's been protracted and long and, compressed at the same time, people said, well, is that the right number? And we said, well, let's talk to a professional. We went and asked you for $5,000, and we went out to a professional, and they came back with a number today of $540,000. Now that's with prevailing wage. I'm taking it a step further to look at what our building department does for residential siding. What do people pay now in the community, just so we can get a better ballpark than 540. But if it is 540, this is what I'd recommend. This is what I put in a memo to you all today. This hook truck that's here, it's a nice thing to have. It'll help operationally, it'll save wear and tear, all the stuff that DPW talked about at their last meeting with you. Eliminate that 340, I think it's 340.
340,
And
yes.
put that to this building envelope for the police department and put off that hook truck. And then you'd have your 540, to secure the exterior envelope of the police station. Yes.
Okay.
Is that a potential asset job?
Probably for the same reasons that they can't do the painting. I would
Yeah.
think
They don't have the time.
siding they'd need to go on lifts to
think
do
they
the
can go on
siding.
lifts.
It's
That's what
go
they-
up above 2 stories, and it's 2 stories in the back.
Specialized in timing, and you want to get it done, it's a secure facility. There's a lot of factors, but a good idea. I mean, if they can do something around there,
Yeah, maybe there's a
just
portion.
labor on the ground to clean up
Yeah,
would be nice. But we'll find a way to make it as cheap as possible, but that's what I'm proposing. The board has only heard of this, as you're hearing about it, as I sent this out earlier today. So it was a problem. I think we have a solution. I don't know if people agree to it or not, but I can't let the building rot and decay.
No.
We have to do something. So that's my plan. If people have another one that's better, I'm open. That's what I'm gonna try to do.
Is it extensive rot? Obviously it's a concern, but is it all around? Is it everything?
In terms of, we'd reside the envelope, do the, it's not, what the heck's the trim, hopefully with the AZEK.
Things,
We are gonna get, that price is for vinyl siding. We are gonna get a price for siding, clapboard siding again for wood. I don't really wanna do that because the insulation in the lifespan of wood versus vinyl siding is just
no comparison.
so much longer. So, but we're gonna get the price because if people really wanna see something different, we'll at least have that number.
you have a question, Susan?
I just wanted to add that at the financial planning meeting, when we asked the police chief, because in fiscal 2029, there's a feasibility study for the police station. He says he has no interest in doing a new build and changing his facility, maybe at some point a small renovation. So I think it behooves all of us to really take a good look at fixing this now.
Okay.
Because he's not asking for something big in 2029.
Okay, thanks for that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like there's a short-term lifespan, that there would be some big move of the police station in the relatively near term. We need to protect this building for the long term.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you know, all the way up to 31,
Yeah.
feasibility study, 32, you know that one. The lease purchase agreement, this, again, this is being reviewed by council, and they gave us input. We learned from the question from council whether these were, how these were procured, and I guess there must be a state contract for this particular piece. That's what Greg had answered to us today, so
Okay.
that's solved, and we can deal with those questions at town meeting. Council will be there for that, too.
Excellent. And I had posed those to the superintendent, but if the word's coming back, then that's good. Got those answered.
36, consolidated personnel bylaw. This will be, you know, everything you do from merit increases to any additional personnel changes, which I don't know those off the top of my head because Diane works with those. So I don't know if it's laid out in the book or not.
Yeah, there's typically there would be a section in the town meeting book that detailed any of the changes, but typically there's I think what was proposed in people's budgets was a 2% cost of living adjustment for July 1st, and that'll be reflected in the wage tables that are part of the personnel bylaw.
Yeah, she just
But
has, she has a
in
link
terms
in
of
this one.
changing
so-
any classifications or
That's
anything
true,
like
we're
that,
not.
I'm not sure there's anything in there that,
Because we did most of those last year based on the comp study, or the classification
yeah,
study.
I think that was maybe 2 years ago, or
Maybe
but
going back.
it was going back, but the staffing study and the class comp study changed the name, like the titles of the grades from numbers to letters, so, or letters to
Yeah,
numbers.
so I remember that appendix was
From
fairly large.
From letters
that
to
year.
numbers now.
And since we have no union contracts that are up for this fiscal, this is where you would normally put those funds if you were to not settle before town meeting. But that's not in here now, but that's, I think, where that money would reside. So 37 and 38, this is a little different from the last presentation we made, because when town council reviewed this, these were one article. So we've had a vacancy in family youth services for a long time. I think it had an admin, which was half-time, which has been vacant for over a year. And then it had an outreach social worker type person that hasn't been filled in at least that same time. And then June, who was a director, retired. I think will be a year in June. So that gave opportunity for us to study merging Family Youth Services and Department of Health into a Health and Human Services Division, which other communities have. But we did it because on my way in the door, the interim town administrator, realizing he was about to lose the health director, Kristen Black, made the recommendation based on a study from the Collins Center. You gotta follow my logic here. The Collins Center did a study that said, hey, you should do a strategic study about merging the departments. And so most communities could never merge a department because you have staff there. We really have no staff, right? I have an interim health director in Isabella, and I have no one in family youth services. So they did the study, we made a presentation, they had a public hearing Monday night with the board. You can merge these two departments, get one department head to oversee both, and I think get a better service model.
Absolutely.
For about $3,079 more than you're currently paying. All right, you're not really paying for family youth service because no one's there, but that budget's 186, the health budget's 205. You'll be $3,000, more than those combined figures, to have a family use, health, human services division that can provide the health component for all the things they do with nursing and public health, and you'll get the benefit of having someone that manages the caseload between school, council on aging, police department, fire department, hoarding cases, and provide that wraparound services that I've never been a part of a community that has that level of service. It doesn't exist in a lot of places, but somebody 40 years ago said this community should have it, and I guess I'm just taking their lead and saying, if it's what the community wants, this is the best service model, this is the cost. And that's what we pitched on Monday, and that's what we're hoping to do with these two articles. So, merging two departments to one. Where am I now, 38?
39?
39. So they did this master plan implementation. They had a lot of committee meetings, have a nice book. And a couple things when they talk about revitalization of the downtown area, you've got to talk about transportation, and you got to talk about parking. So if we're going to have a robust downtown, we want to go after this meeting, which probably there's no place open right now. So we're either going to the top of the hill, but we're not going to be downtown. We need parking, right? We don't have a lot of municipal parking. I don't know what's out there, but I can't really negotiate or put on an RFP to get parking if I don't have authorization to do it or funding. So this would give me funding, not that I know right now what that number is, because I just don't know what people would charge me for municipal parking. So the goal is I'd be able to write a request for proposals to the community in this district and say, we're looking for parking, do you have any land you would lease to the municipality for public parking? And they would respond and say, $10,000, $2,000, whatever they want to charge, and we'll decide, A, if it's worth it, strategically located and so forth, and if we can afford it, then we would enter in this agreement to get that parking for that downtown. So that's what that article does. The second bigger piece for economic development is public transportation, which you don't have any. So we are working with RTA. You might see a survey out there now trying to ask people what their transportation needs are, whether it's the train station in Westboro, from, the shopping, what's it called? Northborough Crossing.
Northborough Crossing,
Yeah,
yes.
from there all the way up through the center of town, to have public transportation to an area you're trying to redevelop is critical. So that's a second piece of this, not part of the article, but I just give a pitch for, we're trying to take a holistic approach to economic development for transportation and keep people in the downtown, and when they want to leave, a way to get to a second place of transportation like a train station. So, a little off track, so I apologize for that.
Tim, can I just add that the budget model does include $10,000 for that article?
All right.
And these numbers that we discussed include $10,000 being appropriated for the
that
parking
purpose.
spaces.
Great. So it's a new thing, right? Nobody's done this before, but we have to ask the question, and we need authority to do it. Whether we'll get parking or not, I just don't know. But I think it supports a larger plan. CPA, you've had CPA in here. You don't want me to cover all that?
Yeah, and there hasn't been any changes that I know of.
47 is kind of a big deal of a house cleaning thing, but rescission of debt over and above what if you've done with projects, you're rescinding that amount. And Jason's covered that with you guys in the past. If you have questions about that one, the projects that are done. All right. And then the rest really is zoning, right? Everything here is planning board related. There's a street acceptance, there's a citizen's petition, which we won't speak to in any way, shape, or form. And then we had proposed that the fire department give their presentation someplace earlier, but it was moved to the end any committee can give a report at town meeting. So it's under 66. I just think it's important that the community know that, or remember, not know, that you've allocated 3.5 million, I think, to this fire station project and site selection, and it's gone through a process. It'd be good to remind the community that money's been allocated. Somebody had a goal to put a fire station at this location, and let that building committee report out on what the heck they're doing.
Tim,
Just like they did here tonight.
Do you think there would be an opportunity to get it moved forward?
I don't know. I mean, I guess we can always ask the moderator to take something out of order. It's totally up to him.
Why are you thinking?
Just by the time you get to that point in town meeting, everybody's gone, right? They've showed up for whatever topic that was of primary interest. And so by the time we get to what will be the end of the second night, we're not gonna have an audience of the people that need mostly to be informed about, what is the biggest next municipal project we've got in front of us.
I would just add, we would cut out, like, when that presentation happens, like, I'm sure the chief would work with cable just to get that excerpt and make sure people see that town meeting presentation only on YouTube and only that piece, so they don't have to sit through the whole thing. For the second piece of this, everything I've just run with you tonight, I'm gonna do, once this is signed, I'm gonna spend time between myself and department heads going through each article for informational purposes on cable, so they can, if they only wanna hear about Article 37, they can just click on what I would say about that article, so they don't have to listen to me talk from 1 to 37 to get to 37. So we'll index it to make it a little easier, because walking into a meeting and having to make decisions about a community's future and $80 million, 66 articles, we gotta do a better job. I feel like I have to do a better job of communicating what's in here, and if you have questions, I think this is the bigger piece, call us ahead of time. Jason will answer your questions. I mean, he's busy. I noticed he responded to yours pretty quick today, so that was good. And that's what we want. We want that level of customer service where we're meeting people where they're at. They have questions, we respond. So it's a two pieces to that puzzle. Is get on TV, give information, but we're also here before 4/22, town meeting happens. Call us.
It's been my experience that the second night of town meeting is very poorly attended anyway, and people keep calling the quorum. If they call the quorum, there very likely isn't one, and you've got this major article sitting at the end of the program, so to speak. I think it's a terrible place to put it.
Which one? The
Fire department.
Well, it's not an article, it's just a report by the committee. They're not asking for anything.
Nevertheless,
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Nevertheless.
That's, I try to go as quick as I could.
That's good. So what's, jumping then to next Monday, what's the, I know, I had a logistics question. So the agenda that was posted indicated that the joint session wouldn't start till 7:30?
'Cause I didn't look at that
We just-
detail.
we- so
But
I
we have an
just
executive
saw it
session to
posted.
sign and hopefully a purchase and sale for 13 Church.
So I got the indication or the implication was that because of the executive session and the other bit of business that the select board needed to do before the joint budget hearing, that we're probably looking at a completely virtual meeting, all Zoom.
Yes, because this room won't accommodate that switch to be executive session and then come out.
Yeah,
It
that's
just
what I
won't-
figured.
It won't work. They're gonna call it in session and they can't shut this off. There's some logistics with this being in person, so it will be all Zoom.
Okay. And so I think for us,
So, no in person.
No, I'm sorry, I thought that
Yeah.
got out today, maybe it didn't.
yeah, so that's why I bring it up. So I think we're gonna be, we'll get the panelist Zoom link prior to, with maybe an expectation of 7:30 for the joint, if that agenda holds true, Monday night.
This is probably a unpopular thought, but could we take advantage of that, not having to attend the selectmen's meeting, but yet having to be there in some form as a quorum to meet ourselves? We got piles of stuff to go through yet, and not a heck of a lot of time to do it.
I don't, for the reviewing of the materials for, I guess what we need to do is take what we've received electronically and do our in the background review of it, and then get any questions to Jason and to form out to staff. I guess the only other time we would have them for deliberation would be our meeting on the 4th, which is when we really need to be able to finalize the report and take our votes. So I think our next opportunity would be to meet on Thursday, the 28th. Am I doing the math right? Would be the next,
Yeah.
next Thursday.
But is there some way that,
We wouldn't be able to, but, or another night next week, I guess is, and do you feel like we need a chance to get together and deliberate before?
before the selectmen's meeting?
Not before the select, before the
No.
4th, before the 4th. And not
No, I'm
pile on.
just trying to avoid being here until after my bedtime.
Right, right. So, I guess that's
Without
the,
a book to read.
yeah, me too, I got a good one. So really the question is, if we have more discussion we need to have, deliberation to take in an open meeting, do we need to establish another night next week versus trying to pack it all into the 4th and then take all our votes on the 4th? And I'm seeing some nods. That would give a chance to absorb what we've got. And if there are discussions we need to have, another night next week would probably, I'm hearing that's beneficial.
Definitely beneficial. Again, I'd have to be remote.
But then we know.
Regardless of the format, I'll have to be remote.
Right. So we may, because of the travel bits, we may do it as a virtual meeting rather than in person. But if you think that's, having that opportunity, maybe putting in another night next week might be a shorter night and then definitely would make the 4th
Yeah, I
short
think
as well.
even if we have it and it's only 10 minutes, just to have that so that you guys can send out the notice to the public that it's happening, there's the agenda, so that's done and it's in place.
At least we have
And
it.
then if we
scheduled.
show up and we're all good, thank you, and that's the meeting, but at least it's
Yeah.
Yeah, so
posted
at least
and
they're
everything
posted, yeah.
else.
So we could post it for the 28th. Is there a time of
So
day better?
I want to check with George. Then you said the 28th was not good?
28th is not good.
What about Wednesday before that?
The 27th is, it looks like there's a meeting for the town hall selection, which just means my wife and I are fighting over Zoom. So,
Who gets the Zoom connection?
could we do it on 26th?
So the good thing, if we did it on the what's your travel?
I'm just gone the entire week, Sunday
Okay,
to Saturday.
okay.
So
26th, Tuesday?
Anything else go on the 26th?
that would be fine for me.
It's fine for me.
So we'll do virtual because of the travel, so that's good. And then it's just doing the best night. I'm looking to see what else is on the calendar for the 26th. None of us will have conflicts with the ZBA that's going on the 26th.
Will we have
And
access to
financial
Zoom?
planning is not, are you meeting, you're not meeting, Susan's for financial planning, so
Hybrid from here, so you could pop in?
I don't think we're quite ready yet. The room's not
We
quite
could be
ready.
by then, but.
Let's just, to
Probably
keep it
not.
simple, to keep the logistics easy, let's do Zoom the 26th.
Zoom on the
You
26th.
guys are gonna have to meet again.
And let me check one more
Yeah, I know, you're right.
page to look at
Are you
timing.
around on the 26th?
Huh?
Are you around on the
You'll work out.
Because I haven't got the vaguest idea how to do Zoom.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
you can come over.
I just sent the note to John's hand.
All right, go to you.
Have another meeting.
Either way.
Yeah, I'm just doing one last check. Okay, yeah, so the timing's good for me on the 26th. And in terms of a start that works for everybody,
Yeah.
7?
say the 7 o'clock?
Okay.
7 o'clock? Sure. Good. All right, I like that. 7 o'clock on the 26th, Zoom, for any further deliberation we need, as we get questions answered or other information changes. We've got
Person
to
who
start.
sets up the Zoom is gonna be available?
What's that? Tom?
Usually the guy back there does the Zoom thing, or?
Yeah, and contingent on, we've got the Zoom availability and all that, which other than ZBA going on, I didn't see anything else town-wise.
Be all right?
We're good? Okay, we got, the boss gives us a thumbs up there.
Things we can
make
say
sure.
if he isn't here.
Confirmation from the man behind the curtain.
That's right.
That's it.
He's gonna make everything run, right?
So that's great. So joint meeting with the select board on the 25th, Zoom. I'm thinking at 7:30, but be aware of any amended agendas or information that goes out. Then we're together on the 26th at 7 o'clock on Zoom. And then the following week,
April 4th.
back on our Thursday schedule, the 4th. And that's hopefully, we'll finalize, we're reviewing the draft, we're taking our votes.
Yeah.
And that should be a pretty straightforward rock and roll.
16 days before, or 18 days before.
What's that?
18 days before town meeting.
We got it, we're all set, right? Okay. Any other business to come before the committee?
Would you entertain a motion to adjourn?
Absolutely.
Second.
All right.
I
Motion
can't
by
thank you guys
Janice,
enough. I really
seconded by Jeff, all in favor. Thank you very much, appreciate it.
appreciate it. Thank you.